What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's Deckin Around. Today, we are so excited to have Jason Knowles on the show. For anyone who doesn't know Jason, Jason is an absolutely amazing magician from the UK, an independent magic creator, and just a brilliant all-around dude. I'm so pumped to be sitting down with him today. How about you, Steve?
I am excited, man. I didn't know who the hell Jason was until I saw Flatpak showing up everywhere, and I was literally blown away. I'm
Dude,
like, who the F is this guy? And then I obviously ever since then I was following him, and so amazing watching his creativity and everything that he does. So I'm pretty excited to chat with the man behind the genius stuff.
dude, no doubt. He's got some really amazing creations to his name. Continuum, Flat Pack, Butthole, which is my favorite just because it makes me laugh every time I see it. But, dude, I have to say, I think it's going to be really interesting to get a little bit of the creative background behind Jason's brilliance here and then just, kind of find out who he is behind all the magic.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. You ready to give it a shot and go here?
Let's do it.
Let's
It's
do it.
Sunday. It's the end of the weekend, although we do have an extra day tomorrow.
I know, I'm so
People have
excited. Yeah, for
tomorrow off in
anyone
the States.
in the US, happy Memorial Day weekend. Everyone else watching, sorry you don't have Monday off, but it happens.
They have a 2-hour lunch, so it's all
There you go.
good.
There you go. Well, without further ado, welcome Jason. What's up, man?
Jason.
Hey guys, good to see you.
How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. Here in the UK, we also have Monday off this week. It's a bank holiday for us.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
cool.
That's awesome. Dude,
What's
that's
the
way to
what's the
do it.
holiday? Is it like a specific holiday? Or?
Nah, it's just the May bank holiday, spring bank holiday.
Nice.
That's
No
that's how they
particular
do it.
reason.
That's how they do it over in Europe. They're like,
I'm
let's make a bank holiday.
I'm sure there is a reason behind it, but most people in the UK probably don't care. They're just like, I get an extra day off work. Awesome.
That's the real win there. Even if you're celebrating something important, the day off is the win. So I get
Exactly.
it. I absolutely get it.
Absolutely.
If we didn't name our holidays here, I couldn't tell you what half of them were. So
I mean,
just
you
how we
can
do.
name them, and I still don't know what half of them are.
You'll figure it out eventually, Steve. So, Jason, how have things been for you in the UK? With, I mean, honestly, at this point, it's been like a year and a bit into COVID. How's this whole like pandemic been treating you and your creativity?
It's madness. We kind of we've just all just lost a year of our lives, right? It's kind of, in some respects, it seems like it's taken forever. In other respects, it's gone by in the blink of an eye. We've literally just lost a year. For me, like magic's not my. I actually have a full-time job, Monday to Friday. So when the pandemic hit, it was kind of like everything shifted to working from home very, very quickly, and my daily commute is normally an hour each way to work. So
Oh wow,
I actually gained an extra 2 hours a day, which kind of really helped in terms of extra time to spend creating and just playing around and doing all those other things. I guess when the pandemic first hit, I left Facebook and I kind of took a break from Instagram. It was all a bit overwhelming, really. I think social media is interesting because everyone's an expert. Like everyone was an expert on Trump, everyone was an expert on the pandemic, everyone was an expert on Black Lives Matter, and just you're looking through your feed and it's just overwhelming and everyone's got an
yeah,
opinion and it's all so divisive. And I was just like, with everything that's going on right now, I can't cope with this. I just need a break. So I deleted Facebook, which was a challenge in itself because I had a Facebook group for Flatpak. So I kind of had to give everyone notice that I was going to be closing that down, give them opportunity to kind of download all the content that I'd put in there, and then left that, and then took a break from Instagram, and then I sort of came back in July, and just felt really refreshed and invigorated, and just really ready to kind of dive back into being creative and letting that kind of go. And I kind of set myself a challenge to create something brand new every single day for an Instagram video and post a video every single day. And from about July to, I'd say, the end of September, I did that.
Wow.
So literally created something brand new that I could post a video every single day, which was just super fun because when you kind of when you take away all of the restrictions of I've spoke about this on a few projects I've done over the last few months, but the old adages of magic around, can this be inspected? Can it be handed out? Can it be performed 360? When you accept performing for social media or performing for camera as its own performance environment, in the same way you've got close-up or stage or anything like that, you realize that it's got its own advantages and disadvantages. And when you take away all of those sort of close-up restrictions, you kind of open up the door to completely different methods, different ways of thinking, and kind of really leaning into that to try and create short form, visual, high impact, sort of 10-second sort of tricks.
Nice.
I just kind of really got into a role of just things that would work really, really well on camera, and it was really, really enjoyable. It was a really enjoyable few months that just kind of, I felt like that break really kind of just hit reset for me and gave me the opportunity to just kind of fly for a few months.
That's
cool.
awesome. I mean, we all know that social media can be totally toxic, and we're all kind of engulfed in it, you know.
Yeah.
So I haven't heard anything but positive things from people taking time away from social media, whether it's a week, a month. You know, I have friends that are musicians. I don't know, you know, if you guys know who the Chainsmokers are. So they took a hiatus off of social media, and it's been like a year and a half, and they're huge. They're like huge. So for two dudes who are like mega huge to just drop off social media for almost 2 years now, I think, is like, it's crazy, you know. But I definitely think when people, if they do decide to come back, when people come back like yourself, they have more creativity, they're more energized. Yeah, I mean, it you know, maybe a different outlook on social media than you had before, maybe not so much, because I feel like we all kind of get sucked into the madness that is going on, you know, especially being stuck in the house for a year and a half. You know, we can't get out and do our normal day-to-day things that we, you know, kind of relieve tension and stress with, you know. So we're more apt to, you know, we see more keyboard warriors over the past year and a half that are just going freaking bonkers, you know. So it's definitely beneficial, huh?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say kind of approaching social media in a completely different way, because I feel like I've totally done that. So, um, Facebook, I've had to set up a Facebook profile just so that I can power my Instagram profile, because you
Yeah,
can't have a you
such a pain in the
can't
ass.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah. But it's there. It's got zero friends. Like it's just exists, but it doesn't exist. And I don't really have a personal social media account anymore. I've got Deception is Reality, which is purely for magic and me kind of sharing what I'm doing, what I'm working on, those kind of things. And I've got another profile called Newbie Snaps, which is literally just where I kind of share photography. I'm really into smartphone photography, so whenever I kind of go off out anywhere, I'm always trying to take pictures. So I share on that kind of profile. But I kind of see social media now for me as really just sort of an outlet for sharing,
Yeah.
and finding people who kind of inspire me and sort of follow them and support them, as opposed to it being sort of like a personal account or profile. I don't see it sort of being attached to me as a person, sort of at all. I've kind of disconnected from that, and it's interesting because I think that kind of, it's allowed me to almost deal with some of the negativity a bit more. What's the right word? It's made me more equipped to deal with some of the negativity. Because I mean, I don't have the biggest following, but last year when I was consistently posting, I mean, there were people literally creating fake profiles just to troll my posts. Like,
Jesus.
and when sort of like magic repost profiles, like Magic Grams or Magic Vids would post, so I'd block these people. They were then going onto those videos to go out of the way and troll. And then once I block that profile, they create another profile. And I think sort of having that detached from me as a person means I don't take any of that personally anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of just makes me a bit more equipped to deal with it. But it's it can be very, very draining, social media, if you let it.
Oh, dude. Yeah,
Without a
I mean,
doubt.
it's definitely not beneficial for mental health if you have mental health issues, you know. I mean, we all have mental health issues in some short form or long form, you know, depending on what stage you have. But you know, people, it's just so it's so incredibly toxic. You know, the trolls and just people that like literally go out of their way. I mean, we see it all the time, whether it's with you know, Casey Kathleen have talked to us about it. We've had you know, people talk about how, like you said, create other accounts, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, we've seen it for Deckin, like people against Deckin around, where they create many accounts just to purposely harm you, you know, not so much physically, but mentally. And they don't understand that you're a person. They only see you as Instagram. You know, they don't understand that, you know, they wouldn't do that in person, of course. You know,
I mean, they may. You
most
never know with
likely.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most people wouldn't do that in person. That's the crazy thing, you know. But what it comes down to is like people just don't understand the consequences of them acting like an ass, you know.
Yeah, or they don't
Yeah.
care, and
Yeah,
the internet brings out the worst in a lot of people, sadly.
yeah. It's because they're not getting confronted, though. I mean, most of the people, if they were in your face, they wouldn't do it because you know they'd get punched in the nose.
I think was it Mike Tyson who said that like social media has helped people become really comfortable with being disrespectful to others because they know they're not going to get punched in the face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
And it's so true. It's so
Yeah,
true.
it is. Or nowadays, stabbed or shot. Like it happens to people. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think there's been so much acceleration of responses because of like how bad bullying and all this trolling can be on the internet.
Yeah.
People, not to say people overreact. I mean, I do think it's an overreaction if you go and you stab or shoot someone because of something happening online, but like the both sides of it basically have been exacerbated significantly, which is crazy. But
Yeah, it's so true. It's like, I mean, it's funny because normally, right, you're not gonna have three dudes talking about it. But I think it's super important for guys to talk about it because in our minds, how we're brought up or whatever is just like, don't be a baby, right? Or don't be a sissy. I don't like using that word, but you know, that's kind of just how we're taught to deal with things and not show our feelings. But that shit hurts our feelings, you know, regardless of what it is, it hurts, you know.
Yeah, it's so true, and I think it's one of for me it's one of the hardest things as a creator when you kind of make the decision that you're going to share something that you've created. There's always that no matter how confident you are in something, you could have worked on it for the last 10 years or whatever, and no matter how much you love it, there's always that moment where you sort of hit the button and publish, where you kind of like you're hovering and you're like, what's the response to this going to be?
Yeah.
And you never, I don't think that'll ever go away. And it's interesting because the magic community can be, I say community quite loosely, really. I think there's lots of little communities, right? But it can be very like, what's the right word? I don't want to say toxic because I think that's a bit harsh, but it
Competitive, I
can
think, is a good
be,
word.
yeah, competitive. But there's, it's almost like, so in a court of law, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and I think the magic community almost flips that on its head, right? You're guilty until you prove your innocence, and people have a tendency to kind of overreact to something, or that their opinions is it's fact. They believe their opinions are factual. So you hear people talk very passionately about something, whether it's on a review show or whether it's on the cafe or wherever it is. They're just so passionate in the way that they deliver something, but it's almost like total disregard for just sort of the basics that you would expect as a human being in terms of like, I'm a person, like have a conversation with me. I'm more than happy to explain anything in the amount of detail that you want, and we'll kind of have a grown-up conversation, and we'll kind of deal with the situation. But people are so quick to sort of publicly lambast something
Yeah.
without giving it a second thought. And once it's out, there's no point it back, right?
yeah,
And Yeah, I guess that's probably part of the reason why I've kind of there's a few reasons that I've started to be more independent now. Is kind of I'm trying to get away from that completely. Like I've got my own little corner on Instagram, and do you know what? If you vibe with me, you vibe with me. Great. Like come and join in. Like I'm here for you in whatever capacity you want. And if you don't, you don't. You can go back to your mainstream stuff that you're doing, and that's cool. And that's cool too. But you've no reason to come and sort of have a negative opinion because I'm just doing my own little thing over here and it's not impacting you at all, kind of thing. So that's kind of part of my outlook on it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, obviously, as a creator, I mean, Tyler and I are creating different things, right? We're not creating, gimmicks or things like that. But whether it's a video or a talk show, whatever, it's we still hear those negative comments, and we definitely try to let them roll off our chin and just be like, it is what it is. Some comments that are made are very valid, and we try to address those. Some of them are just people being assholes, and some of them are just people's opinions. But every once in a while there is those comments that are just like, why did you even say that? Like, what's the point of
Yeah.
saying that? It's not constructive. It's not going to offer anything. It's literally just like walking into a store and you look at the person who's behind the register and you're like, that dress sucks. Or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's
Yeah.
just, what's the point? And I think people are just confused, and they're, I mean, they feel like putting other people down makes them look better, makes them feel more superior, I guess, but it's it's an interesting journey, social media, that's for damn sure. And I totally understand, if you're creating and you're putting things out there, you're gonna get comments, you're gonna get people talking trash, you're gonna get people that love it and hate it and whatever. If you're not getting both sides of the story, then you're not doing something right. But it's the ones that are like just downright hateful, that's like, what's the point?
Yeah, I think it's a line in a Kanye West song. If I wasn't shining, would have been no shade. I kind of always look at it like that. If you got haters, then you're doing something right.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, that's the way I look at it too. And that's when you've finally done something that's worthwhile, because if no one's hating it, then no one cares. And like, you want people to be caring on both ends of it. If someone hates on you, it's because they're jealous of what you're doing. If someone loves it, it's because they love what you're doing. So either way, you're doing the right thing there. But it's tough as a creator, especially in these communities where you do have such I don't want to say close knit, because I don't really think that's the right term for it, but such close communication and so much visibility into everything that's going on. You really do get these people who you've never interacted with, who you've never had a conversation with, who will just come out and be willing to say the most heinous stuff. Or like, honestly, my favorite across the board is always like I know how you did that comment. And like, good for you.
No, this is it's kind of a real pet peeve of mine. The amount of people that I've blocked over the last 18 months. I don't understand. I understand. So magicians on Instagram are very interesting because they all seem to follow each other. And I guess for me, I made a really conscious decision that I wanted magicians to be my audience. So, and that's because I want to share my products with them. And so I'm very careful around hashtags that I use to try and make sure that I'm going to come up on magicians' feeds. But it's interesting for me that magicians who aren't creators like follow so many magicians, and almost want so many magicians to follow them, and it's kind of like a little bit of a confusion as to who their audience is and who they're trying to perform magic for a little bit. And it's something that I find absolutely fascinating, but it kind of drives the behavior of kind of what you said around like just wanting to prove how smart you are, like going on and not only just saying I know how you did that, but actually openly telling people what the method was, or guessing what the method was. And it's kind of like, this is a public forum, and it's not about the debate of, is it okay to sort of teach tutorials on YouTube and all that? That's kind of a different conversation for a different day. But if you're going onto someone's post and you're openly commenting in a method, then you are exposing magic for no other reason than to make yourself look smart. It's not cool. it's
I mean,
really not cool.
I look at it as, look, maybe I did do it that way. Maybe I didn't. But who cares? Like why? And that's a perfect example of why are you saying that? Who cares? Like, just let's be honest. Like, I'm a very beginner magician. You know, I don't. You know, obviously, if I put time in, I would be still a beginner, but I'd be a better beginner. You know, but what it comes down to is there's a lot of sleights and stuff that I know how it's done because I've watched a lot of magic. I love magic, you know, and I've tried so many things. You know, do I know a lot? Like myself, can I do a lot? No, but I know how a lot is done. So if I see a magic trick, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, I know how that's done. And I still didn't see it. So they obviously did a fucking amazing job at it. But what's the point in saying that you know how they did it? Who cares? Like it's all it is validation, and for them to look like a good magician or intelligent magician, that they know how it was done. You know, we talk about this with Spidey all the time. Spidey gets so many people on his feed, like just blabbing out during his lives, like blotting out like how, you know, magicians on his channel do different, you know, tricks or whatever. They're like, oh, I know how you did it. It was blah, 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 blah. And it's like, shut up. You know, Spidey blocks them.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing is though, like Spidey's audience is like lay people in general, right? He's interacting with lay people, so you're not. It's not like you're in a closed magic forum where you're kind of like having conversations. You're literally exposing methods to lay people who weren't there to try and learn magic. They're there to be entertained. It's just it baffles me. And then the other one is like people get really everyone seems to feel like they are the creator police. So like if they see something and they think it's been done before, they'll just comment in a public forum and go, oh, you've ripped this off, or you've done this and you've done that. And it happened with Continuum. Like someone was commenting and like linking to something else, and it's like, all you've done is validate that you don't know how this works, because you've pointed to something that you think is the same that's actually done completely differently. And actually, if you'd have just sent me a DM and asked me about it, I'd tell you that the creator of that you've sent me a link to, well, the one you sent me a link to is somebody else ripping off somebody else's tricks. So you don't know what you're crediting. And the original creator of that version of it, me and him have had a conversation already and discussed the differences in methods, and like there's full blessing there, and actually on the download there's a whole history and credited on it. So like you've kind of jumped to a conclusion straight away, tried to cause drama in a public forum, when actually if you'd have just shot me a DM, I'm pretty accessible. We could have like cleared this up in about 5 seconds. But it's you just showed your lack of understanding on who the original creator was by pointing to a knockoff. And it's just those kind of things that I guess for me are sort of the draining part of putting your work out there, because it's almost like you kind of want to just let it go over your head and ignore it. But if you leave some of those things unchecked because of sort of the way the community can be, like it can snowball really, really quickly and become a big thing, when actually you just got to go and address it head on straight away and then put it to bed. But it's just, that's the draining side of it, right? That's the side that's not the fun bit. But the flip side of seeing people performing your things like makes it all worth it for me. Like seeing other people perform with my things and getting great reactions, like that's what it's about for me. Like I would give my stuff away if it didn't cost me money to do it, just to be able to see people performing.
That's really cool.
I mean, speaking of that, I don't know how many people were performing flat pack. Like, I don't know how many people. It was literally like wildfire. It was everywhere. It was sold out. It was like, I don't know how many times it came into Murphy's, sold right out. Like it was crazy. I saw Javi
Yeah,
F1
blew
man
up.
do it first, and I was like, "Oh my god, what is he doing?" Like I don't understand. Like it didn't compute to me, and I just like followed it and saw everybody doing it, and then that obviously brought me back to your page, and I was like, "What the hell is going on?" That's definitely something that I'm sure you were proud of seeing as many people doing that as there were.
Yeah, it kind of blew up out of nowhere. I don't think
Yeah, it
we,
definitely
like
did.
it was it was an interesting one because it's such a long road getting Flatpak over the line. Because I'd sort of spoke to a number of different companies and been quite far down the line with a number of different companies, and for whatever reason with each one it didn't kind of work out. And randomly Murphy's were filming some at the table lectures, and they came to the UK and they were doing a load of lectures with UK creators all in a short space of time, and they were filming at the Alakazam Magic Shop down in Kent, and they've got a little film studio there, so they're filming down there. And Mark Lavelle was the host of them, and I've known Mark for a few years now, and he posted on his socials to basically say, look, if anyone's in the area wants to come and sit in on some of these, we've got a couple of spaces in the studio where we're filming. So I literally drove from the north of the UK all the way down to the south of the UK to go and sit in on a few lectures, because Alan Rorison was one of the lecturers, and I love everything that Alan does.
Alan does amazing work.
Yeah, Alan's dope. Now, how long was that drive?
About 4.5 hours.
It's so
Yeah.
funny because in California, you're like from the north all the way down south. It's like I'm like, bro, 4.5 hours.
I
That's like
get it.
nothing.
I get it. So my brother lives in the States. He used to live in Texas, and we did a road trip from Austin to Houston. So
Yeah.
that was like longer than one side of the UK to the other, and that's not even a long drive in the
So
US. So I get
funny.
it. But like on the drop of a hat, to just go, yeah, I'm just gonna go drive 4.5 hours, book a hotel just to sit on a few lectures like the day before. I kind of decided I was going to go. But yeah, so George Tesoro, who was just stepping into the role of kind of head of product development at Murphy's, was over, and he was doing the filming, and Titanis was with him, and Titanis had seen Flatpak at the session convention in the January earlier. And he was asking me kind of what had happened with it, if it had like gone anywhere, was it being produced yet? And I had one of the gimmicks on me. And I said, no, to be honest, I've kind of walked away from everyone back to square one. They're all saying it's too difficult to build. And George went, can I take that prototype? And I went, yeah. And a week and a half later, a sample arrived through my door. They'd been away, like got someone to replicate it, sent it to me. And when we think we can produce this like this, mass produced it, no problem. Do you want us to do that for you? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And I think it was a big commitment for them because it is a very intricate gimmick to make. And for it to be worth a while, they had to make a lot of them. And it was kind of a bit of a gamble. We thought it was going to do well, but I don't think any of us expected it to do as well as it did. And I think after about a week of pre-sale, George went back to the poor guy out in Greece who was making them and said, yeah, we need you to do the same amount again. And that the poor guy hand makes every single one.
Oh, damn.
The crazy thing is they're cheap too. Tyler and I have gone through some gimmicks that are like
ridiculously expensive for what they
the
are.
hell
Yeah.
is somebody paying $80 for this? But like Flatpak's cheap. It was like what, $35?
$35, yeah.
Dude, that's crazy cheap.
Yeah, and it's I shit you not, this is a difficult game to build. Like when I looked at it, I was like, I'm not putting this out independently, and I'm not going with a small company that wants me to make them, because that was the issue with a few of the other companies. They were like, so how many can you manufacture and when can you have them ready by? I'm like, hell no. Like, I've got a life. Like, I have no interest in making these or mass producing them. Like, just to literally be sitting there. So yeah, the fact that they got that done was awesome, and I think the turning point for it. So I've got to give a massive thank you to Patrick Kuhn. So when I released Double Take a few years prior to that, there was a routine on there that I wanted to use with that gimmick, but it was basically one of Patrick Kuhn's routines from Extortion, but it worked this particular gimmick, and Patrick gave me his blessing, and we kind of talked back and forth ever since then. So as a bit of a thank you, I sent
Thank you,
him one in the
Mark. We
post.
appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah.
Love it. So yeah, I kind of sent one in the post just as a thank you for him previously giving me permission to use one of his routines, and
Nice.
he performed with it, and like it just blew up on social media. And that was,
Yeah.
I think that was the week before it released, and
Yeah.
I think everyone saw that and was like, "What is this? Like,
That's so
I
awesome,
need
dude.
it."
I mean, Patrick is just, above so many, just the
got
way
good
he
reach, for
performs
sure.
it is so smooth, So that's definitely a perfect person to give it to. But yeah, I mean, it was just so cool. I can't believe one dude produced them. Like one dude in Greece. That's crazy.
That was his full-time job for a few months. But I tell you, if I had to do that for a full-time job, just shoot me now. I honestly, he's got some patience. That would be so depressing.
Dang, man, that's crazy. Hey, it worked, and that kind of opens up doors to whatever. Did you get a lot of requests for people to do their own decks, like custom deck stuff, or I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and they all kind of got told no.
Dude, yeah, I can't even. That's got to be crazy expensive to do something like that too.
The challenge is, I mean, have you both seen the gimmick in real life?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen it in real life. Yeah.
Yeah, so the challenge is it's not the same size as a card box.
Right.
So to do a custom deck, you can't use one of the card boxes. You need the actual artwork.
Yeah.
To be able to then like manufacture it. So you've then got to go and actually like get that aspect of it manufactured first. So it's not easy to do custom decks, and yeah, I just don't have the time. Like for me to commit to the time it would take to do that, I'd have to charge someone. I'd either have to really love the person and just be doing it out of the goodness of my own heart, or I would have to charge a small fortune to kind of make it worthwhile. It doesn't make any sense. But I got a lot of requests. Yeah.
Hey, maybe you can quit your day job with all the custom flat packs.
I mean, I kind of spoke about this when I jumped on Madison's podcast. I have no aspirations to quit my day job. I love it.
Yeah,
that's good though.
No, what do you do for your day job?
So I'm a customer experience director.
Very cool.
Yeah, I kind of try and keep the two separate. So I mean, if anyone really wants to know, they can go and find me on LinkedIn. But yeah, we design innovative, brand new customer experiences. Across sort of end-to-end stuff. So across contact center, digital experiences, app like customer journeys within apps, web development, like everything, the whole spectrum.
Very cool.
So yeah, kind of, I love that. It really, if anything, it helps with the magic creativity. So like when you spend most of your days in product development, it's kind of the same process in developing your own product. It's just you're looking at it through the lens of magic instead of delivering a product for a regular customer. So and there's all kinds of theory that then I actually want to, at some point in the future, I want to write a book on this. So I kind of played around with a title like The Expert at the Board Table, and kind of putting a different kind of slant on it. But there's so much customer experience theory that kind of lends itself to what I believe to be great performance theory in Magic. So when you look at designing a customer experience, we kind of look at a few different things. We look at who's the customer and what is the scenario. So for any given experience, you might have 4 or 5 different customer personas. Each of those personas have different expectations and a different sort of need from what they expect of that experience. Right. Then you take that persona and you look at the scenario at which they're engaging with. And then once you understand those two things, you can design an experience that's tailored and personalized to them. So I believe within Magic, as a lay audience, you have a different amount of personas within that audience. And depending on which persona you're delivering your performance to, and depending on the scenario or environment you're in, you can tailor your routine on the fly based on those 2 key points. So rather than just having one set routine, you can actually personalize the experience based on those two bits and proper planning and understanding how you would deliver for those different personas in those different scenarios. And I think there's a whole sort of area out there to be explored around that would change the way people look at performance, because at the minute it's one size fits all. So yeah, I think there's loads to play around in that space, but yeah, that's a long, deep conversation for a different day.
I mean, that's definitely a cool field to be in, especially with, they kind of complement each other, right? You're able to, obviously you're a creator, so creating that experience, regardless of where it's coming from, is definitely beneficial.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. There's a lot more I want to do in sort of the space in between where they overlap. I think I'm only just really started to scratch the surface, but I kind of put a lot of that into the actual products that I've been developing as well, especially now I'm kind of doing it independently. So not just the actual sort of, not just about the method or the trick, but the actual product. Do you know what I mean? And making it a really good product.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything negatively towards kind of other things that are kind of put out there, but
we could say it for you.
I feel like, so I don't know. So there are some really high-end products that have a lot of time and effort put into the packaging that come with that product, as an example. So something like Mental Dice, the packaging on that is incredible.
Yeah, amazing. A little too amazing, actually.
but for me, it's far too acceptable at the moment for someone to put a £15 trick out in an envelope with a sticker on it.
Yeah.
And like, just for me, in my background in customer experience, I think if you're buying a product, you should be getting a product, and as part of a product, the packaging and everything that goes around it, the experience that you go through when you go to like get the online instructions or whatever. Like, how many times do you get a tiny little URL put in the middle of it with a little password, and it's all just really difficult, whereas actually you could just scan a QR code in the product and then suddenly everything opens up for you. And do you know, it's just all of those little touches that I think when you're buying a product, you just got to make it as seamless as possible for that consumer when they pick that up to just go through what they need to do. And I feel like it's almost an afterthought for most things that are put out. So kind of been a real key emphasis for me on everything that I've been producing since I've started doing it independently, is all of those little details, is to really make sure that they're sort of on point. I think we've done some really, I'm very lucky because my wife is, she's a freelance illustrator, but a fully trained graphic designer. She also lectures at Bolton University on the illustration animation course. So I kind of have these like great ideas for packaging, and then she brings those design ideas to life. And then we manufacture them all at home. So prior to the pandemic, we bought like a silhouette cutting machine, a decent printer.
Nice.
And we literally manufacture all of the product packaging ourselves. And like the bud hole packaging and the digital detox packaging, I don't even see the digital detox packaging, but it's like getting an iPhone. It's so cool. It's like getting an iPhone. Like,
really?
The packaging, yeah, it's so cool. And the in fact, actually, I've got one here. So.
Oh, that's so dope.
Oh, nice.
And then we come in here and pull this little thing out.
Oh, that's so dope.
Dude, yeah,
I don't want to expose what's inside it, but then you got a nice little QR code that you scan and the password down there. And,
that's really cool.
That's dope.
Yeah, just putting the time and effort into those kind of things, so that actually it's not just the trick itself, but it's actually receiving.
You're building the brand. Yeah,
it should put a smile on your face when you open sort of the parcel and you see it. That bit should put a smile on your face just as much as actually learning the secret.
Yeah,
there you go.
And
it says your packaging is next level. So sick.
Bo, look at Bo's profile picture.
Well, so Bo was one of the first people to buy Budhole. And there's an interesting story with that, because it was one of the first ones that we tried shipping internationally. And I learned very quickly that we needed to reinforce the packaging because Bo's bottle turned up smashed to pieces, and I had to send him a new one very quickly. So unfortunately, Bo went through the pain of being the first person through the mill, but super appreciative of his support on that. But I think Bo will be the first to say the packaging on Bud Hole's pretty sweet. My wife absolutely knocked out the park on that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't care. I'm gonna just say it outright. They don't care. They literally want to put their gimmick out, whatever it is, whether it's in an envelope or in a tiny little shitty box, or whatever the case may be. They don't care. They're just putting their trick out and they're getting paid for it. And sometimes charging too much for something that comes in just an envelope. And it's unfortunate, but that kind of separates the people that do come with packaging that is beautiful and caring.
Yeah, and I don't want to judge, because I think I'm very privileged that I don't depend on this to pay my bills.
Right.
And that's not lost on me at all. Like, I understand that I'm very privileged that I don't depend on this to pay the bills. So that affords me the luxury of not having to work. This creating magic's not about making money for me. Like, it really isn't. If it was, then I guess maybe I wouldn't put quite as much effort into some of those aspects of it, because I'd want to streamline some of it. But it's just a passion for me. I'd do it even if I wasn't kind of putting the product out. I just love to create. It's what I do kind of with all my spare time. To my wife's drives her insane. But so regardless, I'd just do it anyway. So it's just my way of sharing it. It's just the fact that I love seeing other people perform with it. So I'd quite happily give it all away for free. Like, I genuinely would. But it's almost that you devalue it by doing that. So there was a download I did last year, and I kind of did it as a pay what you feel. And you got so many people that kind of just pay 50p or pound or whatever. And I just said, look, if you like it, come back and buy me a coffee. And it made me realize that people just, they don't see the value in that. And it's almost like they don't have to work for it, so they don't necessarily appreciate it. It just becomes a bit of a throwaway idea for them. So I kind of stop worrying about the margins, make the product as great as I think I can make it, and then charge what I feel is a fair price, just so that people feel that there is value in it. But it's a shame that if it doesn't have a price attached to it, people don't necessarily value it as much. I think Caleb did an interesting experiment last year, didn't he, where he kind of, for 24 hours, he put everything down to $1 or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
Just to kind of
And
see
then
what
bumped
the
it up
reaction
to
was gonna be.
$10,000 after. And yeah, that was definitely interesting to see. I think it was
wasn't it?
I think it was liquid pencil.
It was liquid pencil.
Yeah, where he increased the price over the course of time, and it was interesting. It really was interesting to see how people react to that. And yeah, I mean, I think that's all part of kind of the marketing aspect of it. Like you said, building the experience is just as important as the gimmick in reality, because if you build a great experience with a gimmick that maybe doesn't hit for everybody, people are still going to know the brand and come back and keep an eye out, and you build that kind of repeat customer experience there. But yeah, it's an interesting concept with the idea of pay what you want, because it's actually really big in the programming world.
Music industry.
Well, and it's huge in programming though, in the sense of for open source software, anytime you go to an open source software site, it's hey, I use this, I built it for me, but if you like it too, send me a tip, whatever. And a lot of places end up doing that. And I wonder though now too, how much of that was the initiator for things like Patreon, where people were oh wow, so many people are not really valuing it as much as I expected, or not willing to give back for the value they're receiving for it. I'm going to make aspects of it. You kind of build out that freemium model, where it's you can have this part of it, but if you want to access all the rest, go to my Patreon and you'll get a code and blah, blah, whatever. And it's a bit of a shame, because it's one of those things where we try and work on the honor system, and we try and say, hey, I built this because I'm passionate about this. I want people to enjoy it. I built it so people can enjoy it. But at the same time, understand that there's cost involved in that, and there's time involved in that. And even throwing $1 is a sign of respect more than anything even. And that's where it comes into play, because people don't really always consider that aspect of it. They do see it as a very capitalistic idea, where it's here's something for free. How good can it be? Versus here's something for, $100, and that must be better. We've seen across the board in Magic that things that sell sometimes for $100 are not great. You know, sometimes the build quality is terrible. Sometimes the gimmick itself, and I think this is also one of the big things with Magic, the gimmick itself, or the premise and the theory and the working of the gimmick itself can be mind blowing. And sometimes you have an disproportionate weighting on that for the cost versus the build quality. And so you get an awesome idea with a shit build quality, and someone pays $50 for it and it lasts 3 uses because it tears or it falls apart. And it's like, I'd rather pay a little bit more for better quality, you know? And I think people have that mentality, and that kind of ties into the whole like, oh, well, if it's only $1, how good could it be? And that's not true. Like, you have to realize that not everything is built in a way that the gimmick itself is the underlying value. It could be the theory, the premise, and things along those lines. So,
yeah, I mean, there's a reason why every business models their branding, their packaging of Apple. Literally, everybody that has a brand wants to get the same experience that Apple gives people. Tyler and I were talking about this the other day. We always joke around. He's a PC guy. I'm an Apple guy. You know, and I used to be in computers. So I know.
Sorry, Tyler, we can't be friends anymore.
I know.
no,
Right?
I mean, listen, hold on. Here's the thing. I'll be honest. I have an iPad. I do have I have a MacBook somewhere, but like most of what I use, because it's PC based, I can build a computer for $600 that does what I need it to do. And that's why I will always be PC, because it's more modular.
Right. But here's the thing. So, and obviously Tyler and I can go on days and say, yeah, but my laptop, my MacBook is going to last exponentially a lot longer than yours. You know, yes, it costs you to build, you know, a PC for 600, but by the time mine dies, it's worth 3 or 4 of yours that you have to build in the meantime. But
maybe.
Yeah. But here's the thing. My point I was getting at is what's inside the computer is the same fucking thing.
Yes.
You know, it's
especially
the same fucking thing.
Especially
exact
now
same
that
thing.
Apple uses Intel chips, it's all the same shit.
Until next year, then they won't be. But they use the same thing. What makes people buy Apple, right? For the most part, obviously it's run differently, the computer itself. But what makes people buy it at that price is it looks so much better.
Well,
you know,
there's 2 aspects.
What?
I think there's 2 aspects. There's the snob factor.
Yeah.
There's no getting away from that. Like, people buy Apple because they like the snob factor. But it's the experience. Yeah. So I genuinely think it's the experience, and it's all of the little details. And I think if you've only got one toe in the Apple ecosystem, you'll never really see the benefit of that experience. But the fact that I can film a tutorial like on my phone and within 30 seconds be editing that on my iPad because it all just syncs through the cloud, and do you know what I mean? And be able to control it from my watch while I'm filming, or control it from my iPad while I'm filming, or like the fact that while I've got this set up now, I can use HomeKit to bring my blinds down, and do you know just how all of those things kind of
that interconnectivity is next level.
Yeah, and I guess for me, it's that they think about the experience of it and how they take you on that, and even like the unboxing aspects of it, right? So it's all just dead simple. The fact that for years they didn't even need to put instruction manuals in their products because it just took you through that experience when you just switch it on. Do you know, all of those kind of bits. It's those little details that have built that brand over years.
Yeah, but I mean, before even watch, iPad, before all that stuff existed, it was the branding. It was how you got your iPhone in that white box.
Well, it's also the fact that the iPad or the iPod was a revolutionary music device in comparison to like the other shit, like the what was it, the Zune, and like this guy, like every
the Sony
and
mini disc.
Oh my god, yeah, like and really what it comes down to though is Apple from the jump knew that they had to be innovative in all aspects. And I have mad respect for Apple as a brand, because I think they went from
Steve Jobs, man.
They went from literally a competitor of Microsoft back in the day when really you'd go some places and they'd have those big ass G3 Macs with the blue or the red or the orange back on them, and you'd walk in somewhere and you'd be like, ew, you have a Mac? You're like, what? And now it's like pretty much the majority of Americans have some sort of Apple product in their household. The majority.
Hold on. Hi, Mom. Mom's here. I have to.
Hi, Janice.
I have to interrupt anybody who's coming when my mom comes in. Hi, Mom. Love you. Okay, go ahead, Tyler.
But yeah, like it's crazy to think in the time span since the iPod, they have taken their brand from, again, a competitor, but a far, I don't want to say inferior even. Their product has always been solid, but a far less recognized competitor to being the pinnacle of product design. And it's amazing to see. Like, and I wish I could name the people who helped bring that vision to light over the past, 20 years in reality, because like they deserve amazing credit for what they've done. And they've literally created methods that will be written about in textbooks for their lifetime and their children's lifetime. It's
Johnny
impressive
Ives, man. Johnny Ives. Like,
it's impressive. It's genuinely impressive.
Literally, that guy talking. I mean, obviously, it doesn't work for them anymore, but like that guy talking over a commercial while you see the inner workings of how they make the iPhone just makes people give their credit card. Like, I don't even care what it looks like. Johnny Ives talking and watching this commercial. I want two of them. And it's all about.
I'm sure Spidey could do a breakdown of the hypnotic methods used in that promotional material.
Oh, 100%. Johnny Ives' voice is definitely hypnotic.
That would be impressive. That would be an awesome video to watch too. Like, oh, these are the psychological methods that they use to tie you in with all the advertising, the branding. I mean, even you look at even like the release events that they have. I would be curious to see how the numbers for those release events for people watching them compare to major sporting events, because I bet you they're on par from a level of viewership. And to me, that's insane. It's absolutely insane. And if you really think about it, like, it's not just people in the tech or engineering industry who are watching it because it's a trade show of sorts. It's people who are fanboys and fangirls of the brand who just want to be like, the next iPhone is awesome. And I think that's great. Like, that brand loyalty is something that I think every brand aspires to. I mean, it's similar to the brand loyalty that like Starbucks has. It's like, personally, like, I think Starbucks coffee tastes like shit. Like, I'll be the first person to say that. I think they over roast their beans and it tastes disgusting. I haven't had coffee in a long time, but I will never forget the fact that Starbucks coffee sucks. But people will swear by the fact that like you could have a Dunkin', a Starbucks, and a McDonald's right next to each other, which are all three of the highest rated coffees, and the majority of people will probably go to Starbucks. And it's like branding and brand loyalty there. It's crazy to see. And I think trying to get
bushiness too. Yeah. It's that like Jason was saying, it's that like snob factor.
Yeah.
Starbucks is the snobby factor. If you go into Starbucks, you're the rich person. So it's for your ego as well. Even if you can afford a Starbucks, doesn't matter. If you go into Starbucks, you are considered more rich than going into McDonald's.
Yeah, for a dollar coffee that tastes better. So yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's just how it is. That's how our mentality works around anything. Even when we can walk into like a CVS, right? And you have Zyrtec, and then you have CVS,
CVS
generic, which is like $4 cheaper. Dude, I am literally the first person that does this. I look at the prices and I'm like, okay, they could be the same, but you don't know if they're the same exact thing because you don't know the measurements or whatever. Most likely that's the same thing. I'll 100% always get Zyrtec. 100%. Every time I'll buy Zyrtec just because I know it works.
Well, there's that trust factor there too. Yeah, like you trust the product, but and I feel like this was a long tirade to get back to the original point that I wanted to make on this was I'm actually really excited to see Magic hopefully go that route, because I feel like, there's certain industries across the board, and I think Magic is one of them, where you're always 10 years behind the curve. You're always, so in my day job, I deal a little bit with the legal industry. The legal industry is 30 years behind the curve all the time. There are still states in the US that only allow paper filing. They don't have electronic filing systems. Like, to me, in this day and age, it's not like computers are new. It's not like computers are expensive.
No.
Blows my mind. And so, like, you look at those kind of industries and you're always like, man, why are they just getting it? But at the same time, when they finally do get it, it's super exciting when you're in that industry, because you're like, yes, not only can I take all of the past experience of all these other great creators from other industries and bring that inside, but I can also then put my own little spin on it and personalize it to this industry and really make it something powerful. And I think Magic is probably very much on the cusp of that. I mean, like you said, the branding and the packaging side of it for you is very important. As we see more and more of that, I definitely think we'll see people phasing out of the little envelope with a sticker on it, even on the smaller end stuff, you know, and it may result in slight increases in manufacturing costs for things. You know, we may see every gimmick, instead of being $9.99 as the minimum standard, being $10.99 because there's an extra dollar for packaging in there now. But I think people will ultimately enjoy that significantly more.
Yeah.
I mean,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's been really interesting for me since the turn of the year and starting to do this independently, because I think I look at something like Digital Detox or Budhull, and I think if they'd have been put out with one of the larger known Magic companies, like the volumes would have been astronomical, like they'd be performed everywhere. And I think it was very conscious thing for me that actually, you know what, it's not about selling to millions of people. Like it's about just giving a good experience to the people that know about it. And what I've seen so far is, even though the volumes aren't huge because it's independent, just the fact that people come back. Like, very few of my customers have only bought one product. Very, very few.
Right.
Most of them come on to buy 2, 3, 4. And even in a really small community that I've got, like, I've seen that straight away already. So, and the feedback that I've got from customers so far has been fantastic. So for me, it tells me that kind of the decision I've made is the right one, because I've never been interested in kind of chasing fame. Like, I don't need lots of attention. I don't need like hundreds of thousands of people to know who I am. I'm not interested in that in the slightest.
But you shouldn't have came on Deckin around, dude.
I'm honestly, I'm not like it's interesting. So I've not actually been doing Magic that long. It's about 6.5 years now since I discovered Magic.
Oh, wow.
So all of my close friends know me before Magic. Right? So picture that. You've had like friends who you've had for a very long time, and they just know who you are. They know you're not Magic. Like, there's nothing I could ever do that they're going to look at and think, oh my God, like, Magic's real or whatever. It's just that's just Jay messing about doing whatever he's doing. So it's like that totally different dynamic. But they're always like, oh, are you going to go on Britain's Got Talent, or are you going to go on this, or are you going to go on that? And I'm like, no. I've got no interest whatsoever in chasing fame. I get it. I understand that there's lots of people that want to be famous, and that's what they want to be, and that's cool. And if they want some help creating some Magic to go and do that, like, give me a call. But I'm more than happy to just have a small little corner and a group of people that are invested in it. I've got no aspirations for all that big attention. So it kind of really validated to me over the last few months that I've definitely gone in the right direction for me, because I'm seeing the people that are engaged, are really engaged, are really enjoying it, and are coming back 2, 3, 4 times. And I guess for me, that's all the validation that I really need.
Yeah, I mean, that's building a brand that you're proud of. You know, like, we see it literally, and Tyler was saying he hopes, you know, we see it more in the Magic community, where it has paved way in the card community, and nobody even thinks about it. Theory 11, their packaging is glamour.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody, literally everybody who gets a Theory 11 deck knows what's inside. But every time they open a package of Theory 11 cards, a deck of cards, sorry, every time they do it, they complain. I really wish the deck looked like the box, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, look, that's not what Theory 11 is about. It's everybody buys a deck. Not everybody, obviously, but most people buy a deck because of the tuck box. It's because of the packaging. And obviously it's a little different than when you get a phone, because you don't use the packaging, but it is that experience. So when you open up, you know, and I'm not obviously using this deck as an example of a shitty tuck. I'm just saying a standard tuck, you know. But when you look at a standard tuck, you're like, cool, it's flat, there's nothing to it, you know. And then you like open up a tuck box that you get, and it's like this one has this like opening mechanism. It opens up and spits out the deck, and like, that's literally what sells a deck of cards.
Yeah, and it's literally, and it's the same paper in both for the most part.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
it's
literally
creating that experience. Yeah,
literally, people will create different tuck boxes, but the same deck goes inside. Literally the same deck, same color, same deck back, everything. But it's all about the packaging, whether it's a phone, whether it's a computer, whether it's a cup, whether it's a deck of cards. And that's is what it's all about. And yeah, hopefully we do see a little better of that coming into the Magic side. And it doesn't have to be like luxury, it doesn't have to be mental dice that plays fucking music and has a like light on it. Like to me, that's useless. Like, what's the point?
It's
but
crazy, isn't it?
It's you paid for that box, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
But when you look at something, let's bring whatchamacallit, Abstract Effects for an example. All their packaging is usually in the bags, right? The little Ziploc baggies, like the sturdy ones, and that's not like glamorous packaging, but it shows that they care enough to have a brand that's consistent. Something that when you get a bag like that, it's Abstract Effects. It's not just an envelope with a sticker on it. Which I understand some people can't afford doing those glamorous things, but like Tyler said, charge an extra $1, go just an extra step. If your work is worth it, people will pay the extra $1. We were talking about before the show, there's people that pay $35 for a deck for the standard tuck box. And if people like what you're doing, they'll buy it regardless of the price.
Yeah, I'll never pay like more than £3 for a deck of playing cards, because as soon as I get them, I just start cutting them pieces. I feel really bad. There's so many like deck creators, and they'll send me decks, and they'll be like, "Oh, can you post a video with this or whatever?" So the first thing I do is I literally just start cutting them up and making all my gimmicks out of them. And part of me thinks, well, actually, if I post a video with this, it's helping give them some attention or whatever. But the other part thinks, I wonder how they feel about the fact that I've literally just cut their cards to pieces.
Hey, they knew what they were getting into. That's for sure. But yeah, and I mean, and that's the other thing that I always see with Magic too, is the foundation for that brand loyalty is already there. I think there's two types of Magic buyers. Ultimately, there's the people who will buy everything that comes out, irrespective of what it is. They will buy everything because they just want to have it all and play with it all. I think that's awesome. Then you have the other side who will only buy from specific creators, but they will buy everything that person comes out with.
No matter how much.
Yeah, no matter how much it is, no matter whether they're going to use it once, they want it, and that's that supportive side of it. And that's where that that foundation to build that brand loyalty is already there. It is already there for all intents and purposes. It's just now being able to expand that brand loyalty into something where it's not just like, hey, I really love this creator, I want to support them, but hey, I love everything about this creation and I want to support that and I want to continue to provide for it. And I think that's something that this community inadvertently kind of leverages, but once they're cognizant of it, it's going to become so much more powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 100% true. And it's funny because Stu just mentioned that he paid $112 for 2 decks. And I think I know exactly what deck he bought, but it's because of the packaging. And obviously the decks inside are nice as well. They're gilded, blah, 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 blah. But what it comes down to is like the packaging is beautiful. If they had those 2 decks standing alone for $112, less people would buy it.
So interesting. So the question for you though, so you guys are both deck collectors, right? So you spent all that money on 2 decks of playing cards. What do you do with the decks?
So Steve and I will actually play with cards. We'll actually use the cards for the most part, depending on the deck. I have a couple decks that literally just sit back here and do nothing. But for all intents and purposes, most decks that I get opened. No matter how nice they are. I mean, here's a perfect example. This is a really ornately done up deck.
Wow.
This thing is gilded and everything. And no problem taking it out, playing with it, fans decently. It's not a bad deck. I'll play with it, but again, gilded decks are tough there. But I've got no problem playing with the deck, no matter how nice it is, unless it's like something you spend stupid money on. Like there are decks out there you probably spend a couple, $100+ on. You're like, all right, maybe this is a little bit of a different story. So
I think I have two aspects of my collection. I have some that I definitely keep sealed, but I also open most of my decks. I literally went through with a friend of mine the other day to see. I have 340 decks of cards. That's included opened and not opened, right? That's in just my collection. And I think I have, almost 200 opened. So, more than 50% are open. But like, for instance, I have the white Monarchs right here, which this deck is
Love them.
$100, $100 deck. I don't fucking care. It's open. I play with it. I have a Propaganda and a Rebel, both, $50 decks. They're both opened, but do I have a sealed one? Yes, I have sealed ones of both of them as well.
So that's the interesting bit for me. So I just it's a foreign concept. So I'm just interested to know what's the rationale for it being sealed or for keeping it sealed. Like, what's the rationale?
Well, so there's two different things, right? Just like anything that you collect, if you collect hats, if you collect shoes, if you collect pocketbook, whatever the fuck people collect, it's
Stamps.
Barbie dolls, stamps,
potential resale. Yeah.
Whatever. It could, potential resale. Some people do it for that. Some people do it so they can look at the sealed collector's item on their desk, but again, I've gone through, I've gone through two of these already where I've played with it and totally, put it through its work. It's gone in the trash and I've opened up a new one, so it kind of depends on, the scenario, but it's just like anything. If you're collecting something that has value, then it's in your collection. So it's on the shelf or whatever. You know what I mean? How often do you read those books behind you?
Interesting. Good question. Depends what I'm kind of doing or what I'm studying or what I'm working on. So most of them are kind of annotated on the inside from when I went through them the first time, and kind of keys on the inside to little snippets that I might want to dive back to in some little tabs. But it really depends on what I'm working on. But you don't read a book over and over again. You kind of take what you want from it and dismiss the bits that aren't very useful. I'm not the kind of reader who will spend lots of time studying everything that's in the book. So what I tend to do is I skim through it to find the things that pique my interest, and then I focus my time and energy on the bits that pique my interest, and the bits that don't pique my interest, I don't focus my time and energy on. And I think for me, I think that's probably what helped accelerate a lot of my learning in Magic, because like I say, I haven't been doing it all that long, is I really focused on the things that are actually going to be me as a performer or a creator or whatever, the things that are going to be interesting to me, as opposed to just trying to consume everything, if that makes sense. So yeah. But I guess for the same reason you kind of got them on your deck is the same desk is the kind of same reason I've got them on the wall. I look at them like they're almost like pieces of art, as opposed to things that just go in a bookshelf. Is kind of how I look at it. So yeah, it's a good shout.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll be totally honest. I have decks up here that are worth $500, $600. In my mind, it's for a deck of cards. It's fucking stupid. I can't. Did I pay that much? Hell no. Would I pay $600 for a deck of cards?
No.
Oh my god, no. Like, no. So, like, I get it. It's the dumbest concept that I can think of. It's funny because we all grew up on these, playing cards, playing fish, playing war, playing gin, whatever, and and we didn't pay shit. Our parents paid $1 for a deck of cards, and that's what we knew, and I didn't know this world existed until fucking Chris Ramsey got me in it. So fuck you, Chris Ramsey. So that's saying in the politest way, obviously, but it's so crazy. It's so it's just like anything. It's like Supreme. It's like clothing. You know,
Yeah.
people feel it's the same exact way. It's feeling like that great power when you have something that someone else doesn't have. You know, it's
Yeah,
like
but I think
when a deck gets dropped, right? On the day it gets dropped, and you got it before anybody else, and you can show people that you got it, whether you use it or not. You're like, oh, look at this new deck I got. You know, you don't have it. It's the new Fontaine deck. This isn't. But, so a lot of that has to do with just clout, right? A lot of people who buy Supreme jerseys, you know, I don't think a lot of people have Supreme shirts just on their wall. They mostly wear them, you know, but
well,
it's
there's a whole thing out there around people. They'll buy it for the my brother-in-law, Gully Guy Leo. Check him out on IG if you don't already follow him. He's he's worked his way up to being like a brand model now, but when he was a lot younger, he literally used to invest money in things like Supreme, have his Instagram post, and then he'd resell it, and then get the next thing that he was looking after. Now brands from all over the world just send him stuff all the time, and he's got an entire like house full of stuff. But it's kind of a different mindset as opposed to, oh, I'm just going to wear this because these are just my clothes, isn't it? It's like you just want to be seen to kind of have those things. It's interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
think
just
about
like
the whole
Jordans, the sneaker game.
Yeah, dude, the whole that's what I was just gonna say, dude. The whole sneaker game. Like, think about how many sneakers now are produced and never worn.
Bro,
Like,
how many people get shot for Jordans?
it's crazy, dude.
Like,
It's
Did you see
people
crazy.
how
get
much
shot for Jordans.
Did you see how much the Yeezys from the Grammys went for?
No.
So there's a prototype Nike Yeezy that Kanye wore at the Grammys. I think it was 10
Isn't
years ago, something
Kanye
like
Adidas?
that. Yeah, but he was working with Nike at the time, so they had a prototype version of Yeezy. Just Google it, honestly, and they
Dude,
sold at auction last week for a ridiculous
1.8
insane
million.
amount.
1.8 million.
People have like money to spend. Like, first of all, I would never buy anything that Kanye wore on his feet.
Yeah, I don't want. Yeah,
Second of all, I would never buy anything of Kanye's in general. But like, yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's about that collector that has that one pair of shoes. And you know, if you have 1.8 million to spend on a pair of sneakers that
That's
you're never
madness,
gonna wear,
that isn't it? That's madness.
it's crazy. But that's what it's all about. And you know, just like whether it's a deck of cards or a book on a shelf, you know, it's stuff that we find pleasing, I guess you can say. And
Yeah, I'm
people,
terrible. I can't look after things. I can't look after things. I can't collect things because I can't look after them.
yeah, you cut them up and ruin them.
even these books, like on certain pages, there'll be coffee stains or spilt drinks or like bits of glue or.
That's cool though. That's character. But dude, here's the thing.
that's loved.
A lot of people would be like, I would love to buy that because it was Jason Knowles, it was his book, and I would love to see his thought process and like his doodles or just random things that would be in that book. That's like history, let's say 20 years from now, you know, or whatever. Like it's definitely something that people enjoy, and I think it's great that stuff exists. You know, like I always, when I go into used bookstores, I always buy the book if they have it in the used bookstore, The Prophet. It's my favorite book. It's an amazing book. I highly recommend it to everybody. It's a super quick read. You can read it while you're taking a deuce, but like it's a beautiful book. So I always try to go in and see if they have it. And usually there's always writing on the first page of somebody giving it to someone, you know? And that's like it's like one of the coolest things that I enjoy when I do see, you know, one of those books in a used bookstore, because I just pick up the books and I give them to people as well. And I also write in them. So it's kind of just getting that history of, you know, to my dearest Christina, like blah, 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 blah. You know, it's really cool to see and put yourself in the mindset of the person that was before you with that same object. You know, it's like when you find a dollar bill that has writing on it, you know, you're like, oh, where did this come from? Or it's the story, you know. And Tyler and I talk about story all the time.
Yeah.
You connect with story. If something has a story that's relatable and people can connect with it, it'll do so much better.
Yeah, it's interesting what you just said there around like do you know the line you just said around, oh, someone will collect that because like it was Jason Knowles's, or like, and in a few years time, like that's a concept that is, it always makes me feel really uncomfortable. So like a few times now people have asked like, oh, can you sign a playing card for me and send me a playing card, or can you can you sign it, can you sign the door box before you kind of send it out? I don't know. I always feel like it's almost like imposter syndrome. Do you know, when people ask you to do those things, it's like really hard to kind of come to terms with that someone's invested that much that they want to kind of sign something. And it's, yeah, I struggle with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so true. It's like signing decks. You know, it's kind of funny. I've never been into signatures. I think they ruin things. You know, I don't want to see a signature on my tuck box. I don't want to see a signature on my photo. Like, it's a distraction for me, you know. And I don't think, I don't know, you know, people aren't, I guess, kings and queens in my eyes, where I'm like, oh, I want your signature. You know, you're just a person just like me. So when I see people charging $90, $100 for signatures on eBay, I'm just like, man, that's crazy. It's crazy. You know, like there was this actually the set of playing cards from when Cardamundi and USPCC merged. They had their celebration set. And that set is very hard to find. And it just went for sale on a website for $3,000 for 2 decks. But it had like a bunch of signatures on it. Not everybody is famous or well known. Some people don't even know who they are. But like in my head, you know, and I know like I look on eBay and the set itself sold for like $1,200. So that's or $1,500. So in my head, I'm like, okay, what signatures are worth $1,500? Just signatures, you know, and people pay it because it has those, and it has, you know, some people like Roger Clemens' signature, or Mike Tyson's signature, or blah 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 blah, you know, and I get it. I understand the value in that, but it's just, you know, people will pay whatever money they pay because they want something, because it is that nostalgic feeling for them, maybe, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's mad. I look at that and think I could go on holiday for that.
Dude, $3,000. Dude, that's like 3 months rent. Well, maybe not anywhere that I pay, but not in California it isn't. But for a lot of people, it's three months rent.
Yeah,
you know, all for a signature, dude. But
crazy.
But I mean, who am I to say? You know, I'll pay. I bought a pair of sneakers the other day that I, you know, walk around in for, you know, $120. In the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of money for a pair of like new Nikes nowadays. But like, it just, people buy it if they want it. That's what it comes down to, whether they can afford it or not, right? How many people, you know, live in, well, not maybe you know, but how many people have you seen live in horrible conditions but drive a dope car?
I come from a working class town, and it happens a lot.
Yeah, it's because people see them in the car and they have to have that persona about them.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about looks, man, and that's what it's all about. Got to look cool. Speaking of decks of cards,
yeah. Let's why don't we do our sniff while we're here? Yeah, honestly, we talked about opening decks, we talked about playing with them. So as anyone watching may or may not know, we have a tradition on the show that we've done since episode 10. So we're looking at 57 weeks of this, you know, almost over a year of this. And basically in episode 10, we had our friend Stu Courier Stu McCann on, and Stu is known in the playing card community for sniffing and eating decks of cards. And now, while we're not going to ask you, Jason, to eat a deck of cards unless you really want to, we do ask all of our guests to open and sniff a deck of cards and give us your thoughts on it. I don't know. We treat it somewhat like a wine tasting or a wine sniffing, I guess. So, what deck are you going to be opening today?
We've got the Wild playing cards.
Nice.
Oh.
Very
Pink.
bright deck. Yeah.
Yeah, these cute little pink flamingos on them.
And that's actually a nice Cardamundi deck, too.
Cool.
So we just crack it open and we just give it a bit of a sniff.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, anywhere you want.
Yeah.
Double open.
I got the tip at a convention a while ago, like with the Cardamundi cards. You just give it a
Brilliant.
little twist in it.
Yep.
Comes right off, yeah.
I used to spend so long trying to feel those things. I feel like I need like a sniffer or something that can just give it a little, air it out a little bit.
A little aeration, yeah.
You got to give it a little bit of a riffle.
Yeah,
Get that little breeze going.
I feel like we're getting a strong hint of like flamingo.
Flamingo dong.
With a little bit of leaves.
There you go. Smell some paper products there. Oh god, I love it.
That's definitely the weirdest thing I have ever done.
There you go. I don't know if I buy
You
that.
haven't lived yet. You better get out and live a little more.
I feel like we've
buddy.
all done weirder things than sniff a deck of cards. Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. See me at the Blackpool Magic Convention on a Saturday night. You'll see me do far weirder things than that.
There you go. Well, hopefully next year we'll all get to partake in some drinks and hang out on Blackpool evenings, and be a fun time.
You guys plan on coming over?
Hopefully,
Heck yeah, that'd be
hopefully
awesome.
once things are settled and international travel is more acceptable at this point. I feel like this has been a weird year for us because we were pumped on so many conventions, and it's like, between Cardistry Con and Magic Live and all these conventions, it was like, oh, it's going to happen next year. And then all of a sudden 2021 comes around. It's like, all right, just kidding. It's not happening this year. We'll go to the following year. And it's like
2021 is cancelled.
Yeah, basically it feels like it. And it feels like we're finally ramping back up into some form of normalcy at this point. But I think we still have a long way to go, all things considered. So be interesting. But yeah, we're hoping to get to as many of the conventions as we can, just to finally get to meet so many of the interesting people we've chatted with on the show and really understand, even more about them. I think as much as the online interaction is a decent substitute, there's nothing that beats that personal interaction,
Yeah.
Well, if you do make it to Blackpool, I'll get the beers in.
Dude,
I don't drink, so Tyler will drink my share. I'm cool with like a good root beer. Like, you guys got to have good root beer there. I don't drink.
You're not going to get root beer in the UK.
I know. I'm kidding. I'll drink water. Excuse me. I'll drink water. But yeah, dude, we would definitely love to come out there, and I hope they lift certain countries with spaces in between. That way, because Tyler's like telling everybody, "Oh, we'll come hang out. We'll do."
We don't have to do it all in one shot. We're not gonna
do that. So
we're
we
not gonna
gotta
do Deckin Around World Tour 2022.
Dude, I'm down. We better start raising some sponsors here, and for anybody who wants
do
to
the
sponsor
podcast
Deckin
from a
Around,
different location.
Yeah,
Do the podcast from a different location each week.
There you go. That would be we could do that now. We just need the green screen in the background and the Zoom changing background. Coming to you from the Caribbean this week. Oh god.
We'll have to have a different theme every week.
Oh my god. That's so much work. As long as if it's just the green screen, it's not too bad, but we can figure something out there.
Yeah.
But
So I have a question for you, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all the creations that you have, which was your favorite?
That's like asking a mother to like answer who's their favorite child, right? It's
Don't you can ask my mom. Me and my sister already know who the favorite is. Right, Mom?
Yeah, I say that. I've got three brothers. I say the same thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. That there's always that saying, but parents always have their favorite, whether they want to admit it or not. They always have their favorite.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because everything that I'm really, really proud of everything that I've kept out this year. I think in terms of I like them for different reasons. So I'll give you a rundown of what I like about the different ones because I don't think I can just give you one favorite. Budhole from a one I think the name was a stroke of genius.
It really
Two, like the engineering that went into that product, it's probably my proudest in terms of like the time and effort that's gone into making that and make it work the way it does. I mean, Alan Rorison picked one up last week and sent me a message to say it was like a one-word response. This is a work of art. And if you know all of the things that Alan does and manufactures and makes and his random prop shop and that kind of feedback from someone who really manufactures things, like that was kind of like the best validation I ever could have got for that product. So I think just the level of detail that's going into that, I'm really proud of it. I think for just pure eye candy on camera, like digital detox is just the cheekiest like method ever. Like it just really is. It's so simple, but it looks incredible. But I'd say probably my favorite at the moment is Conveyance, because this was an evolution of methods, and it very nearly went out with I can't really go into the details. Like it very nearly went out with somebody. It didn't go out with somebody. It's part of the independent collection, but it was one method for the Instaprint effect, which is basically you take two fingers and just slowly bring them across the deck, and a banknote just visually appears. And the method, for whatever reason, I wasn't 100% satisfied with it, even though it worked perfectly. And so I didn't push it over the line. And then I kind of woke up one morning. So I've spoke about this before. I'm very fortunate. I'm a really heavy sleeper. Like fire alarms have been off in our house before and not woke me up. I will literally sleep for a minute. But I think because I sleep so deep, my brain does a lot of processing. So usually, in fact, everything that I've released this year, like I've woke up in the morning with those as a fully formed method idea in detail, and woke up in the morning with that in my head, and then gone and done it. And with this was one of those situations where I've been working on something for so long, woke up in the morning, I had a completely different method for it that delivered the same thing, but then it delivered a lot more on top of that. So with this one gimmick, like for me, it's just so versatile because like flap cards have, I think I said this on the trailer, flap cards have allowed people to do like CGI level visuals forever.
Yeah.
The object that's been transformed is gimmicked, like, and you can't do anything with that. But with this, once the transformation is done, like it's clean, like it's kind of takes itself out of the equation. And personally, I think it's like proper revolutionary in terms of card mix, and just the amount of things you can do with it, from taking like a small object and putting it on top of the deck, and this gimmick getting rid of that object or swapping it for something else, like, and just hiding in plain sight, and then where it ends up afterwards to be able to kind of like just carry on into your next routine. It's probably my favorite at the moment. But then I might see somebody else performing with Budhole next week, and Budhole might be my favorite again. So I'm kind of torn between those three at the moment.
All right. Well,
Nice.
I have a breakdown. So saying that was so hard, if you could perform one of your tricks for the rest of your life, which trick would it be?
Conveyance.
Cool.
Versatility.
Cool. And so where can people get Conveyance?
Deceptionisreality.co.uk.
There you go.
Oh,
Which the link is down in the description below. Yeah, we have the link down there for anyone who wants it.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
Gotta plug something, dude.
Well, you can. To be fair, I'm very fortunate in terms of the friends and connections I've made in the magic industry, and I think probably because I've come into magic so late in my life, some of the people who you might consider to be like a big name in magic, or people who people at convention might be a little bit in awe of, like I've never been in awe of those people. They're just kind of people to me. So
Yeah.
I quite happily at conventions, I just go over and like stop them and start talking to them and engaging with them. So I'm fortunate that there's quite a few people who I call friends. But someone who probably doesn't fit into that box, but I think give it 10 years time, I think he's going to possibly be the biggest name in terms of creators in magic, is Luke Osland.
Oh, yeah.
And
yes,
yeah, he said something really nice to his membership a few months ago, which was, you for less than £200 you can buy Jason's entire website, and there is so much on there that is like literally visual, hard hitting, and I think I pride myself on the price points of things being fair. So I think if you think you probably spend £200 on one high-end trick, you can probably get 7 different things for less that will sort of cover more things and a good mixture of things for the real world, but also I can do for your socials. So deceptionisreality.co.uk.
Right on.
So do you have anything? Well, actually, so 2 questions on the creation process too. Once you've kind of come up with these ideas, you know, you mentioned that with Flat Pack, it was a lot of back and forth with a lot of different producers. There was a lot of kind of difficulty in getting people on board with the creation process. Was that the longest kind of ideation to publication process that you've had so far?
Conveyance was about the same length of time.
Okay.
I would say. Yeah, so Conveyance is probably now, it's probably 3 years since I originally showed it at conventions, or the original version of it. So yeah, it's probably been about the same length of time. If I'd have self-produced it though, the timeline would have been much shorter. I think that's probably the other bit that's been nice this year, is sort of since making that decision that I'm only going to self-produce now, is one, because like what I do for my full-time job, like my reputation is really important. So by self-producing, I'm 100% in control of what is put out. And I always felt like working with some of the magic companies that there's a little bit of trust there, but you're not 100% in control. And it was something that I always found really difficult. And coming from working in a corporate environment where all of our projects are managed to time and budget, and working with magic companies, it's just a different, like, and no knock on them, because they're all great and they're all right, but they're all just small to medium enterprises.
Yeah.
In comparison to other organizations. So they are overworked and understaffed for the amount that they're trying to do. And as a result of that, I'm used to working in a very sort of methodical, sort of full visibility of everything that's going on type process. And then when I work with a magic company on a magic product, it's like night and day, and then I don't have as much control. So that was something that I found quite difficult. And I think since I've kind of started to do it myself and just being 100% in control, it just makes me feel much more comfortable with the whole process. And I know that whatever the results are at the end, it's 100% within my control, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
I mean, having creative control is way better than not. You know, it's always tough bringing your creation to anybody else to put out, right? Because they have ideas how to make it better, how to change it so it reaches more people, or whatever the case may be. And it might not be beneficial to your creation to do that, you know, but all in all, you know, you kind of have to, I guess, go for, you know, what they think is best. Thank you so much, Shiro.
Thank you, Shiro.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it, Shiro.
That's
So yeah,
awesome.
so it's that's kind of what it's all about,
I think
having your
the
own
other thing as well
control.
is the timeline. So back to kind of like Tyler's question. Like for now, if I've kind of, so I put a digital, what's the best way? It was almost like a mini series. It's like 13 episodes called Detailed Deceptions. And based on what I did last year, where I was trying to create a new visual every single day, I kind of took my favorite visuals from that, and I've kind of been drip feeding a new episode each week as part
Nice.
of this little series. And the first episode on that, I literally get all of the different things that I use for creating gimmicks out and go through every single thing, like the type of so like have I got one here? Yeah, this thing as an example, right? This thing is incredible. So
Yeah.
people use double stick tape and they're trying to peel the backs off it, whereas actually this is a little glue dot applicator which removes the need for double stick tape, and then you're literally just like coloring in where you want the double stick tape to be. Like lots of all these different detailed things and materials that I use. And one of the things that I think people, so I don't think people struggle to be creative. I think they struggle to execute their ideas because there's barriers in the way. So what I've tried to do is literally everything I could ever possibly need to make something, I've acquired and have at arm's reach. So if I have an idea, I can have a prototype the same day because I don't have to order something and wait 2 weeks for it to arrive. And I think when you have that idea, even though it might not be fully formed, it's at its richest, and it's when you're most energized and excited about it is when you first had that idea. And if you can act on it in the moment, your chances of success are tenfold. Whereas if you've got to order something and wait a week for something to arrive before you can start on it, the motivation's not quite the same. Maybe you've lost some of the little details that you had within that idea. I think for me, now being set up independently to be able to rapidly prototype something and be able to have it and working, and then be able to then just go out and test that with people straight away, just brings those timelines in massively.
Yeah.
And then because we've got a studio on the side of the house where my wife has her studio for her illustrations, because we've started to now set that up to be able to manufacture, the time scales from sort of idea to prototype to actually something that can be manufactured have probably been cut in half. And then we've sort of set up this space now, which is set up to be able to film. So we can have this kind of setup if we want to be able to sort of like do headshots or talking heads for an intro to a tutorial or whatever. Got an
Nice.
articulating arm where I can just spin it around and then do an over the head shot for a gimmick manufacturing piece. A little space over there where I can perform standing or and film standing. So I've literally brought that timeline. Whereas you'd be sending something off, you'd be waiting for something to come back, you'd be booking in dates for someone to come out and do the filming. Like those timelines have just shrunk massively. So now if I have an idea, I can turn something around in a few weeks if it's something that doesn't need road testing or whatever.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, like you said, they don't know how to execute it, but they also don't do the research. And I don't know if it's because they don't know how, or they don't want to take the time, or whatever it is. It doesn't take much to find out how to do something. What's the best, I guess, direction to go in, whether it's manufacturing, playing cards, or whatever, maybe packaging. It's definitely there's so much out there, so much information. You could just Google anything now and it will take you to whatever you need. And Tyler and I see it all the time in these playing card campaigns where the campaign's put together, but it's not even at 1% ready. It's the information that's in the campaign is like, here, buy the deck of cards. This is how much they are: $25, $30, $35, $40. And people don't understand the concept behind there's actually a method to this. And that's the only reason why you have 9 backers and you've been up for 30 days.
Yeah.
That, and it's very simple to find out the information. It's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. It is a lot of work, and to prepare for it all and line it up, it's going to take you time, but I think it's a lot of people just don't know how to be efficient, and they're lazy. So they don't, know how to navigate the best way to get something done.
The other bit I think that's really important though in that equation as well is to make sure you're not creating an echo chamber for yourself. So I think it's really important to have people around you who are going to call you out on your shit and who are going to tell you when something's bad. And for quite a while, the people that I would bounce ideas off were all like, "That's amazing. That's the greatest thing I've ever seen." And whilst that may be true, that's not really useful to me. I'm very fortunate now that I've kind of grown my sort of network of creators to be able to sort of run things by and just test the waters with. And I've got good close friends who are very happy to tell me when something is garbage or when they think something's garbage, and and just throw that in the bin and start again. You can do better than that. And I think that is so important because it just hearing yes all the time is no good for anybody.
Yeah, no, 100%. Tyler and I talk about it all the time. I mean, I don't know how many times I've sent something to Tyler or he sent something to me, and we're both like, "That's trash."
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. That's trash. And one of us might be like, "Well, fuck off," but like, when it comes down to it, we're like, okay, they're right. Tyler's right or Steve's right, or it's just that's the sign because obviously we take everything to heart because we've created it.
Yeah,
It's
you're passionate
personal.
about it.
We're
Yeah.
passionate about it, whether we know we're good at it or not. There's some things I know I'm not good at that even when someone says this looks like trash, it hurts a little bit. You know what I mean? Even though I know I'm not good at it. But I think just separating yourself from that and being willing to hear your friends say that's ugly or that doesn't work or that's trash. And I think those are the people we need to have around because those are the people that help us create those amazing things.
But I think there's also a group of people that are slightly too far the other way as well. So I think that it's finding an important balance between someone who's going to give you that critique for all the right reasons versus someone who's going to have an opinion just because they feel like they need to have an opinion, if that makes sense.
For sure.
And that's a hard balance as well. So Flatpak is a great example of that, right? So some of the earlier stages with that, the amount of focus that went on from some of the potential people that we're going to work with around this product's not going to work if you can see any of the seams. I'm like, it's a folded box. It's going to have seams. No one's going to care about it. All people are bothered about is the fact that a deck of playing cards comes out of it. That's the whole focus of it. No one cares if you can see like where the fold was. It's just been folded. And I think also just being able to be brave enough to step past that critique. If you really believe in something, being brave enough to say, so it's that balance between listening to it and knowing when, yeah, you're right, that's garbage, but also being bold enough when you know that that feedback's not right, it's not in the right spot, and being brave enough to go with it because you just totally believe in it. So I think it's that being honest with yourself and trying to recognize the difference between those two things.
Yeah. And I think, Tyler and I kind of run into this as well. Obviously with YouTube, it's tricky, right? But there's times where Tyler will come to me and he'll want to do something. I'll be like, I don't think that's a good idea. And he'll be like, and he'll argue the point, and him being a fucking lawyer is very good at arguing, and I'm just stubborn as hell. So I like to argue as well. But like what happens though is I think there's a fine line, not even a fine line. I think you just have to be okay with knowing when it's time to fold and knowing when it's time to fight, because we've been in that situation where I'm like, no, bro, this is going to crush. And he might be like, no, it's going to crash. Or I might do that. I'll be like, bro, this looks like trash. It's not going to do well. And he's going to be like, it looks great. It's going to do great. And it's just knowing when, like you said, to know in your heart that it's going to do great or that it's going to be received great. And you know what? Sometimes it may not. But I think believing in it and knowing is important, when you are creating something, especially when you have more than one person looking over it. you know, because there's always going to be different ideas and different opinions, you know, but and as long as you're willing to take those you know, the feedback that people have and kind of alter them where you think is smart, and then just fight where you think is the right, you know, and you just have to be willing to say you're right, it is trash, you know, the
Do,
same amount
do you
as
guys
you're willing to fight.
put stakes on things like that when you've got a difference of opinion?
I mean, I think we have
Do,
difference
do,
of
do,
opinion. I mean,
do
not frequently,
if
but
no, but if you're both on the fence about something, one wants to go one way, one wants to go the other way. Do you ever like go, well, okay, we'll do it, but if I'm right, then you have
Oh
to
yeah.
do this, or or do you
So
like
yeah,
put
all the
bets
time.
on it or stakes on it?
So I'm very much like a data-driven kind of person. So that's always what Steve plays on that for me. He's like, let's just give it a shot and see how it goes. Or like same with mine. I'm like, oh, let's see how it goes. If it sucks, we don't do it again. And like, so we're very open to that from the creative aspect because
we might fight for 10 minutes before
yeah,
that.
yeah, we might. And honestly, like usually it turns out, and again, sometimes it's not always, it's sometimes, you know, we can sway the other side to be like, ah, yeah, no, it's not worth it. Or it's too much energy for what the potential payout would be on it. Things like that. So we do end up getting into the whole kind of discussion of like, what do we think the numbers are going to look like? What do we think the amount of effort that's going to have to go into it? Is it worth it? You know, if it does do great, is this something? And this is the other one too. Like it could be an idea and we think it's going to do great. But if it does great and then it's something we're going to have to continue to do, is it worth all the effort to do? And sometimes the answer is no. And so we do have that discussion like pretty regularly. And like, thankfully, you know, as a platform, YouTube is heavily statistics driven. So like you can go in there and see like, oh, we thought this video was going to crush and yeah, it did good, but it didn't really do better than other videos similar and things like that. So like, it's interesting to see. And from that point of view, yeah, we're always down to be like, I mean, actually, and I think this is something that both Steve and I are thankfully good at is we're willing to admit when our position was not the correct one. You know, we'll come back after him and I'll be like, yeah, dude, 100%, you were right on that one. It killed. Awesome job. Like that's where like, I think a lot of people, you know, it's good to be passionate. It's good to be invested and take things personal to some extent, but like being open to feedback and asking for feedback are two completely different things.
Yeah.
And like people who step into a situation being like, oh, like, I know I'm going to ask for feedback because I'm supposed to. You also have to realize you have to be willing to action it. The other thing that we find a lot, and I think you mentioned this as well, is, you know, people who give feedback also need to realize that not everything they suggest is going to be taken as gospel and integrated. Like we have a lot of people who reach out about the show and they're like, oh, we'd love to see this. We'd love to see that. And historically, we've actually incorporated a significant amount of feedback into how we do things on the show. But for some of the stuff too, you know, we've had discussions on it. We're like, it doesn't really fit our vibe. Or again, the level of effort to do that versus the return on investment is so minimal. It's not worth it. And like, that's where also giving feedback, you have to be somewhat detached from it as well, because you can't take it personally if your feedback is not accepted and actioned without question, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's important too, is to understand that everybody's outlook is different. So we might go back and forth for 10 minutes. Literally, I'll say my side, he'll say his side. I won't see his side until I like take a second and let him explain it better. You know, and then once he explains it, I'll be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's do that. You know, so I think sometimes we're just so stuck in what we think is right that we're not willing to hear the other side of it, you know, where it makes more sense, you know. And I'm lucky enough to have partnered up with someone who is very good at things I'm not good at and who is not good at things I'm very good at. You know, so we definitely complement each other in that way. You know, but just like anybody, you know, it's a team. We get in these like little disagreements, I guess you could say. But you know, when it comes down to it, I think we're good at knowing when the other person has an idea that can add to it rather than take away from it, you know?
Yeah, I think it's there's something really nice about just doing something together. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the other bit that I've really kind of enjoyed over the last few months is because my wife's been so heavily involved is just that, working on something as a team, as opposed to like just completely doing something on your own. It's kind of made the process a bit more enjoyable as well.
Yeah, bouncing things off people are so much fun, you know?
You know, and I think, obviously too, partnering up with your spouse in this situation is probably a good thing too, because obviously you guys know you mesh well. You mesh well in other areas. Now you're kind of testing those creative bounds, and I think that's a good thing there. And especially like you said, her being an illustrator and a graphic designer, she has expertise in areas that you definitely don't touch on. And, like Steve's even mentioned, part of the reason we work so well is because I'm good at things he's not, and he's good at things that I'm not. But it isn't just about like having your lane and staying in it. Like there are times where like I'll talk to Steve and I'll be like, hey man, I'm trying to take this picture, and like, what should I do as a composition, or how should I go about this? And like, you can leverage that person, like your partner's experience, to help you grow and learn. It's not always a hard line of like, oh well, this person does ABC and I do DEF, and that's the end of the discussion. It's like over time you blend and you learn new things, and sometimes you learn that you don't like certain things, and then you say, okay, good, I'm glad they do this because I don't ever want to do that. And like there's other times where you're like, oh, that's really interesting, like I'm really interested in it. This is awesome that I have someone who has this experience who I can kind of kick ideas off of and learn more about this and use as a resource to help me get a better understanding, obviously at a different level for these things. So I'm sure like even with the packaging and design aspect of it, like, my girlfriend's a graphic designer as well. And like all the time I'll sit there and I'll be like, how do I do this in Photoshop? Or why would you do this versus that? And things like this. And like just bouncing these ideas off of, and she gives such good feedback on it. It's amazing, because otherwise I'd be sitting there like using Microsoft Paint still trying to make thumbnails for YouTube, and it would be atrocious. So it's interesting to see how those relationships kind of form, especially in a partnership, because there is no one person who's good at everything. I mean, even, like you said, bringing in the corporate world, the CEO doesn't run a company. The CEO is a decision maker who utilizes his network of resources to make what he thinks are good strategic decisions, but he relies on his C-suite and the people below them and the directors and all these people to help give him the information and their expertise and their opinion in order to make these decisions. Without that, like there would be no companies. You can't just be a single person doing all this. At least to a certain extent, smaller mom and pop shops, yes, you have one or two people who do this. That makes sense. But you get to a point where it's like you're a multi-billion-dollar multinational industry. That's not just one person making decisions for everything. It's not feasible. No person has all the knowledge necessary. And even at that level, it even becomes, and I'm sure you know this too, like at that level, it becomes more of like I need high level understandings of 100 things instead of being super specific on 1, 2, or 3 things, because those 100 things then make the information that you need to make those decisions. And you're relying on those 100 people or however many who give you that information to be the experts in that.
Yeah, it's just not cost efficient too. It's like time. It's like, Jason, you're a pretty fucking smart guy, right? I'm sure that you can hop on YouTube, watch a 20-minute video on how to design a gradient to create this thumbnail, the blah, 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 blah. I'm sure you can do that, right? But it's not worth your time where you can just say, babe, can you do this for me? It obviously that's small scale, but when it comes down to it, it's like, there's definitely different levels of efficiency, and I don't remember what the book is called. It's a book that talks about having people do what they're good at, and don't try to be that person that can do everything, because you can't. Doesn't matter how smart you are. You can't do everything. You can't be a CPA. You can't be a production specialist. You can't be a graphic designer. You can't be a videographer, a photographer. You can't be a social media person. Like if you're the CEO, be the CEO and be good at it, and delegate to all those people underneath you and let them do what they're good at. I'm terrible at certain things. I'm like, Tyler, that's all you, bro. I don't want to do it. I'm not good at it. Could I do it? Yes, I could. But the amount of time it takes me to do that takes him a third of that time, and it'll get done faster. And with, so we need to just understand how to delegate those things And I know it's difficult when it's our baby, and then when it's like our creation and we want to huddle it and, take all the credit. But what it comes down to is like we're only good as the team we allow in to help, you know? And sometimes it's hard to give off some of those things to do because it is our baby and we want to make sure it gets done right, but it's all about having people do what they're good at.
Yeah, I think efficiency is super important. I think it's what you just said then around, yeah, you could watch a 20-minute YouTube tutorial on this, or you could get somebody else to do something. I mean, I've tried to build my entire life around creating efficiency. So I've got a really high pressure full-time job. Outside of that, I also play football or soccer, as you guys would know it, and basketball, the two teams. So I've got all that going on 2, 3, 4 times a week, some weeks, as well as creating magic, as well as trying to find some time for my wife. So for me, like, there's so many, like, even the whole sort of like Steve Jobs mindset. So my wardrobe is pretty much just filled with black t-shirts. I don't even make a decision on what I'm wearing in the day. Like, literally, I always get comments on Instagram because people think that like everything's black art, and it's not. I just like wearing black t-shirts.
Yeah.
It just makes my decision making process super easy. Like,
Yeah.
lots of little things throughout the day which are just going to speed up different processes, and just saving all of these small, tiny, incremental pieces of time to be able to squeeze in all of the things that I actually value. And I think sort of making critical decisions around what you invest your time in is so important, because it's so easy to just lose time. Like, it's just the easiest thing, and people kind of take it for granted. It's madness to me. Like, you get this one life, and people literally just waste time. I don't get it. Like, I'm terrible because I fill my time. Like, the worst thing you could ever give me is spare time. Like, I fill my time with things, and I make sure every single minute of it is spent doing something.
That's awesome, though.
No, it's important to do that, and I think success comes from that, and regardless of what you think success is, obviously that's subjective, but it's a lot of people don't understand the value of time, and I think time is everything, and that's where the whole saying comes in, like, time is money, and it 100% is, and people just don't understand that, and why does this worth this, or why is that worth this, or why is a painting worth that, or it's like it's people's time, and then it's worth something, and it's worth more for other people than it is for other people, depending on what they do.
Yeah, not everyone appreciates the time, hands down.
Yeah.
And I like the black t-shirt thing you brought up though too, because I always enjoy the theory behind the idea that, like, you do have a limited amount of decisions you can make in any given day, and so wasting time and wasting the mental capability of processing decisions like, oh, should I wear this shirt today or that shirt today or whatever, like, you knock that out, you make it easy. You have 5 pairs of jeans that are the same, you have 5 shirts that are the same, you wear them all the time, and that's life. Like, it does allow you to free up so much more time, but also save just mental capacity and almost become habitual in that. And that's where you do build those efficiencies, where things become habit and routine. You shave off time every time you do it because it's second nature at that point, which I love that idea.
Have you ever had anybody be like, dude, you wore the same thing yesterday, did you even wash your clothes?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. Yeah, I'm over it. I'm majorly over it. But even like things like, so my wife plans all of the shopping and the meals for the week. So she invests the time on like a Sunday, plans everything out, so spends one block of time on it, and then it's done for the week, and it's all in the calendars. So every day it's not like, oh, what we're having for dinner tonight.
Yeah.
Like, we never have to have that conversation or waste the time on that. Or are we going to the supermarket to go and get something for dinner tonight? Oh, it's already all in. Do you know what I mean? So there's like so many different things that we kind of put in place to kind of take that sort of mental drain out and time drain out, and just really focus our time and energies on things that we feel add value. And that's not like kind of saying like never switch off, because I think if you make a conscious decision that you're taking time out, that's you're investing and you're making that decision on what you're doing the other time. But I think that the thing for me is I never want to be subconscious of spending my time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because time's the one thing you spend that you're never going to get back.
Yeah.
Like
True.
you don't get it back. There's nothing else you can do with it. And it's kind of like people subconsciously eat and they just start consuming. So like they open a packet of sweets, and the first two they'll be conscious about because they wanted the taste of that, and then before they know it, they're at the end of the bag and they didn't really think about it and they're consuming the whole thing. I
Yeah.
think time is that easy to waste. Like it's super easy to just suddenly you've lost 3 hours and like you're never going to get that back. So it's a conscious decision that we've kind of made to try and make sure that happens as little as possible.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's definitely no, it's definitely an interesting, I mean, thought though, and I think that's also probably what makes part of just your whole success for, maybe that's not the term I want, but we'll use it for now. But your whole success in not only your corporate career and all these other things that you do is your ability to understand that. And I think so many people go through life not understanding that. And that's where I think the whole concept even of regret comes from, is people sit there and they're like, oh, I wish I had done this and I wish I had done that. And it's like, I think there's also like the whole idea of like, there's that saying, like, there's not enough time in the day to do everything you want to do. And while that's very true, the idea behind that isn't to create this whole like, oh, well, nothing I can do about it. It's the purpose of that is to make you cognizant of that fact so that you spend your time wisely. And many people lean towards that whole like, oh, well, if there's nothing I can do about it, then it is what it is. And I'm just going to do whatever I feel like doing in the moment. And while that's not always necessarily a bad approach, if people live happy lives like that, that's fine. But like, if you really are trying to be as efficient and economical with your time as possible, being cognizant of the fact that time is easy to lose. I mean, shit, how often do you sit there and and granted, it depends on it. Sometimes you're reading a book and all of a sudden it's like, okay, 2 hours have gone by because you really got into the book, and that's awesome. Like you don't want to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to only read for an hour and I have an alarm goes off and at the end of the hour, that's it. But like
I don't do that.
but like being cognizant of it all is like, is important. And, that's why usually I read it like late at night, because then I'm like, oh shit, if I read too long, it's 12:30 instead of 12 and I'm going to go to bed a half an hour later. And like, yeah, that sucks sometimes the next day when I'm tired, but at the same time, like it was an extra 30 minutes that ultimately I enjoyed because I was doing something that was enriching myself. So
yeah, you got, we talked about this when we had Ito Huang on, is about, about time. And there's a book called The Traveler, and it's a super small book. It's kind of like I don't want to say it's a kid's educational book, but it can be read that way, I guess. It's all about time management. It is literally, you could read the whole entire book in like 12 minutes. So it's a quick read. You won't lose too much time. But one of the best books I've read, I actually sent Ito one, and it's super cool. I highly recommend checking it out. It's by Daniel and Simpkins or something like that. Daniel, it's by two brothers. Super small book, but highly recommend reading it. And I think you'll enjoy it, especially someone who finds time so precious.
Darren Simpkin.
Yeah, Darren and Daniel, I think it is.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, super cool. Got to read it. It's amazing book about time.
Yeah, I don't live my life like military precision throughout the week. It's just one of those things where I'm just conscious of the things that are like time traps, if that makes sense, and I try to remove as many of those kind of things as possible. But I guess one of the other kind of thing that really drives me is that whole idea of being better every day. So like Kobe Bryant is one of my all-time like idols. You probably see the mentality book on the shelf behind me, and just that whole work ethic, of like greatness or success or whatever, it doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
If you look at everyone in whatever field it may be who you would consider to have been truly great or truly successful, and then you listen to them interviewed, they all talk about the same things, even though they're different crafts or different industries or whatever. They all talk about the same things, and it's that passion, that obsession, and the dedication and the amount of effort and work that they've put in, and like sort of never sort of been deterred or given up from. And that's kind of how I try to approach all things, really, is just that don't be frightened of the hard work. That's the bit that makes it worthwhile at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's 10,000 hours, they say, right? And the crazy. So I think there's the gifted, because not everybody can achieve the Kobe Bryant. I don't give a fuck how much time you put into it, but you're gifted, right?
He wasn't the most athletic though.
Yeah, well, you're gifted, and then you put that time into it. You're going to be
amplifies it. Yeah,
you're going to be the great one. You got your Steve Jobs, you got your Kobe Bryants, you got your like people like that. Then you have the people that are the tier under them, which is the elite, right? And they put in the time. They're like just below the gifted, but they're, better than obviously the average people. They put the time in, their hard workers, and they hit that. Then you have the people underneath them that are like, they just made it. They work so hard. They put in double time that the other people put in, but they made it same spot. And then you have the people that put in the time and they just don't do shit because they don't manage their time. And I think that's where the difference comes in. I think obviously there's a lot of it comes from passion and drive and will and persistence. And that is definitely the ingredients to achieve success, right? Whatever that word means to you, wherever that place is. But man, yeah, you gotta be consistent, and you gotta be doing it and doing it and doing it. And you can't just give up, right?
And doing it right. I think that's the other thing too. That's always the one thing about the 10,000 hour thing that bothers me is like, if you spend 10,000 hours trying to learn something in 100% incorrect way, you're not going to be a master of that thing. You're just going to know how to do something wrong.
You're a master of doing it wrong is what you're a master at.
A good friend of mine who's a coach, he has this saying, he's probably got it from somewhere else, but it's practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent.
Yeah, who just said that? I just saw that somewhere. Stu was talking about.
But it's such a true quote. So you have to have perfect practice to make it permanent.
Yeah. Vince Lombardi said it originally.
There you go. Yeah. So true.
Yeah, no, I mean it is. Practice definitely doesn't make perfect. Practice makes good, for sure.
Yeah,
but you have to do it right.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, and I think that's one of the things that we see a lot in this day and age too, is the idea that you can go online and learn anything. But we put a lot of faith into the fact that the person we're learning it from, who we literally know nothing about, is doing it right, or has the credentials to be teaching it in a way that's going to make it conducive for you to learn. And I always get a kick out of that because like there are people who literally just go on YouTube, they type something in, they pick the first video they see, and that's gospel to them. And I'm sitting there and I'm one of those people, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna watch like 10 different videos. I'm gonna try and figure out what the best way to actually do it is. And then based on that, I'm gonna try it myself. And whichever one seemed to work the best for me, that's someone who I'll give a little bit of credibility to. And then I have a little more faith in them. But like this whole idea that we live in this world now where it's like, oh yes, information is accessible and there and anyone can just go out and learn it. And I'm like, that's also why Facebook has to put implementations in place to be like, hey, by the way, this is potentially false information, because people are just so willing to accept everything at face value. And I'm just like, oh man, like the blessing and the curse of the internet. So
people are stupid is what it comes down to. I'm safe to say it. People are stupid.
The thing is, it's the challenge now is everybody's got a platform. So and because everyone's got a platform, they all feel like they've got something to say.
Yeah.
Whereas prior to information being so accessible, you had to have a real message to be heard. And now, like, it kind of doesn't matter what message is, like, you can be heard. I think
Oh,
that's
bro.
kind of the dangerous space we're in, right?
How many people? So I love my girlfriend. She is the most amazing woman in the
I feel
world.
there's a but coming here.
No, there's no but. My girlfriend is amazing. And she watches people on YouTubers that have millions of followers. Millions. They're making bank. But what they're saying is fucking stupid. Like that, it has no place. And like they're literally, they have a platform and they're talking. You know, it's crazy. And a lot of people, 5 million of them are watching that person, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go do this because this person says it. You know, and that's kind of how cults and brainwashing come in.
Scary times we live in.
It really is, man. It's crazy. It's so crazy.
Could you imagine like growing up again, but in the world
Now?
today, as it is now? That's a
Interesting.
terrifying concept. That
It is horrifying.
Yeah, it is, huh? Well, I mean, the cool thing about it, if we grew up now, so when I was in like growing up, I don't know if you guys went through the same thing, but a lot of the getting bullied in person was literally getting punched in the face or getting made fun of or whatever. You know, that's the only thing that is worse now. You don't get punched in the face anymore. You get literally made fun of online. But the amount of people that join in on that is 150 billion folds. You know,
Yeah.
you have people all over the world that don't even know you that are telling you to kill yourself. That, like, I can't even imagine growing up nowadays. It's ridiculous.
yeah, but if you do get punched in the face now, there's probably 5 people filming it as well.
Yeah.
For 100%. 100%.
Yeah, this is not and this is why transitioning online for bullying is, probably makes more sense, because now you punch someone in the face and you're going to jail, or your parents are getting sued if you're underage or something like that. Like, bullying has evolved for its own, survival. Not to say that's a good thing. It would be wonderful if we could figure out how to get rid of that. But yeah, like, and that's what it is. Like, bullies realize that, oh shit, like, I can't be the guy who pushes some kid down the stairs at school because I'm gonna go to jail for like attempted murder, and then you got a problem. Like,
Interesting though, actually, I was looking at something last week. In the UK now, they've actually started to arrest people for online behavior.
cyberbullying.
Oh, they do that. They do that here too. Some girl just got
but-
sentenced for bullying some kid to kill himself, and she got jail time.
Yeah, I feel like they need to do more of a job of publicizing when they've done that, because I think the more they can publicize people being convicted for it, the more people will think twice.
Yeah, it's not a situation where there's no repercussions. Like, the more you publicize those repercussions, the more people are going to be aware that, like, oh yeah, this isn't just all fun and games. Like, there are serious actions to this. I mean,
yeah. I mean, that's why you don't just go punch someone in the face, because you don't want to get sued. You don't want to get put in jail. You know, like, there's those repercussions that normal people comprehend. Obviously, people that just do it don't comprehend it and they don't care. But it's like, yeah, like, I mean, I'm speechless. There's so many things that just don't make sense, and why things happen. But yeah, they just need to put it out there more and show what's happening to those people. I feel like the UK is a little more I want to say advanced when it comes to that. Same thing with like domestic violence over there. Domestic violence and stalking is a little more taken seriously.
You have a more centralized like country though. That's why, like, in the US it's tough because
you have Laura Richards, who is a freaking savage in like fights that stuff.
Yeah, we don't because in the States you got different laws in every state, right?
Yeah, it's hard to have blanket policy across things like that, especially on the federal level, because again, the internet in the scheme of, law is still very new. And so those fine lines between, is this something that the federal government can regulate versus the states have to regulate versus both, is very difficult to kind of go through. And a lot of the states are starting to step up and actually do something about it, but it's a slow process with any sort of legal evolution. So the UK, obviously, smaller population, more consolidated central body. It makes a lot of sense that they would be forward thinking with that and more ahead of the curve on it, which is good. I mean, it's good that major world powers are starting to set an example with this, because the more they do that, the more that other countries are gonna kind of step in line with that as well. But
It's a shame
I mean,
people just can't be nice, isn't it? Like,
it really is.
can't be
It
nice
is a
to each other.
bummer, dude. And here's the thing too, and I think this is the one thing that I don't understand from my point of view is like, you know, if we all kind of grew up with the whole kind of concept of like, oh, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And it seems like people don't understand that like going online and typing it is the same thing. And I don't know if it's like a whole thing of like, do we not teach kids that anymore? Or is there some like exception where we need to be like, if you have nothing nice to say or type, don't say or type anything at all. And like, you know, it's not like they're side skirting the rules here by going on and being like, oh, well, I didn't say anything. I just commented on their Instagram post. And it's like, that's the same thing. Like, I don't know. It throws me off a little bit. And again, like there've always been bullies, but like, I guess maybe the accessibility of where like the reach of bullies now is much larger than it ever was in the past. Like I can't remember the last time I saw in any way highly visible post. And, you know, I'm not talking about like you post that your friend puts up of their weekend barbecue. Hopefully you don't have trolls popping up on that and talking shit. If you do, your friend's got some issues. But like when you see a post where it's got, you know, 1,000 or more likes and, you know, several thousand views, it's almost impossible now to find a post like that that doesn't have some naysayer on that or some bully on that. And it's like, why do you even come on here if all you're going to do is be negative? And honestly, I question even that person's like understanding of like why they're such a bitter person, because I can't imagine they're sitting there being like, oh man, like I love being angry all the time. It's like if something makes me pissed off all the time, you know what I do? I don't do that thing anymore. Like it's real easy. I mean, same thing with the social media breaks. Like people don't realize that like, oh man, if you go on social media all day and it's getting your anxiety up or it's making you stressed out or it's really impacting you negatively, step away, take some time, detox from it. And you know, like you
But
said,
I'll miss everything. I'll miss all the new pictures, the new decks coming out, all the new tricks.
Dude, and this is at the end of the day though, like literally, like you said, you know, Facebook, they tie you in with that now. I haven't had a personal Facebook account now in probably 7 years. You know what? I could give two shits less. Like the people who actually want to keep up with, I keep up with. The people who were friends on Facebook who, yeah, cool, it was nice to see their pictures of their weddings and their babies. Like at this point, if I care enough, it forces me to go out and actually interact. And at the end of the day, if I don't, then I don't care. And like that's the truth of it. Like I think No, and that's the thing though. We've created this false impression of like, hey, we're maintaining friendships by being connected on Facebook and liking and commenting on pictures. And in reality, pre-internet or pre-smartphone and pre-Facebook, if you were friends with someone, you went out and you played sports with them every day. You did things in common with each other on a regular basis. You know, it's become so easy to be like, I don't want to say fake friends, but like distant friends. Like acquaintances are now considered friends, and that's like problematic.
Yeah, I mean, social media it is fake, isn't it? Like, I mean, there's no two ways about it. No one posts real life on social media. Like they just don't. Like unless the only time kind of real life spills over onto
they post the good stuff.
Well, the only time real life kind of spills onto social media is when you've got some kind of domestic going on and people are like calling somebody out for some kind of domestic thing that's going on. But in general, like people only post this image that they've created of themselves that they want the rest of the world to see. It's like the two faces we have, the one for the internet and the one in real life. So I don't feel like I missed anything being away from Facebook, because I know all I would have been looking at in Facebook is the curated shit that other people want me to see, for want of a better word. Like it's not real. It's not real at all.
You know what I'm sick of seeing? And I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody by saying this. Well, I'm sick. Like I have friends that I follow that, and this is a whole nother topic, you know, that we won't get into, but I have friends that I follow that, you know, all of a sudden get cats or dogs or they have babies, and then that's all that they post on their feed, which is great. I'm happy for them. They got a new dog, a new cat. The first thing I do if people start putting like multiple cat pictures up is I'll unfollow you.
But I think, Steve, I think to that whole point though, that brings up the good point of then why the fuck are you on social media? Like that's the thing though. Like just divorce
100%. No, 100%.
Yeah, get the fuck off it. It's so much easier, man. It's so much less stressful. I don't even have the Facebook app on my phone.
That's why I just like remove them. That way I don't have to look at it. You know,
but like over time, you're gonna remove all those people. You're better off just removing yourself from the situation that causes that, because are you actually getting benefit out of it that outweighs the need to be like, man, now I gotta unfollow this person? Like that's just unneeded stress.
100% of me on social media is my job in every direction. Like needs it. I need social media for my job.
And that's 100%. Where you need that divorce though. And that's where you need that divorce where like you have the business one and you literally just do business on it. And then if you want the personal one, you have it.
Well, that's all. That's what I'm saying. That's all I do. I mean, obviously I have personal Instagram, which I never go on.
You delete that shit. I don't even have one.
Or post anymore. But what it comes down to is like, 100% of my social media presence is my work. You know, literally, I'm a photographer, and my work gets out there based on social media. And then I do my COD stuff. I have a COD business, and Deckin around. You know, everything is social media based for the most part. So,
what is interesting though, like I don't know if you've experienced this, but when you have real world conversations with people and you tell them you're not on Facebook, they look at you like you've got three heads.
Oh yeah. It's gotten more common now because I think Facebook is kind of phasing out to some extent. But then it's something else. If I tell someone I'm not on Instagram, they're like, "What? You're not on?" Or like eventually it's gonna be like, "Oh, you're not on TikTok." Like, and I'm just like, I just don't like. I don't, and not to say that like, and I highly respect the fact that you're very, you know, conscious of your time. Not to say that I don't do things that like just are time wastes, but like I'd rather do a time waste like watch TV than sit there just aimlessly scrolling on fucking social media for no benefit. Like, yeah, the end result and the end like expenditure of brain power is probably very similar, but at least like TV, I get a good story out of it. Social media, like 90% of the time, I'm just getting like anxiety over crap I don't care about. I'm like, oh my God, this person's posting whatever again. Like, I don't care. So, but it is interesting to see how we have this mentality now where like, well, and it's funny too. I remember, you know, probably several years back, this was something that I think people still do, but I haven't heard the terminology as much anymore, but like where people were Googling themselves. And it's like, when we meet someone now, I feel like one of our first reactions is to check all our social media to make that connection with them. And while from a networking point of view, that's great for business purposes, from a social point of view, like that just creates like a fake connection with someone who you probably don't even know well enough yet to know whether or not you want to form that connection. And it's like, cool, I have 750 friends on Facebook. Like, who gives a shit? I talk to like the same 4 people every day. Like those are who I would consider like my genuine, like close circle of friends. Like I don't need 750 people knowing that I went to get a hamburger this weekend that was delicious. Like it's just a very weird dynamic with that. And like the whole thing that it is seen as abnormal now to be not on social media. So how about you? Like, do you get a lot of people who are surprised by like the personal side of it, you not being on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's still alien to some people. I think Facebook particularly is getting more and more common now, though, where I speak to people and, oh yeah, I'm not on there anymore either. But I think there's still people who are just like, what, you're not on Facebook? Like it just doesn't compute for them. Like it's inconceivable to them that you wouldn't be on. Do you know? It's that's the bit that gets me. It's the fact that it's inconceivable to them that somebody would choose not to be there.
It's almost like when you run into someone who like still has like a landline telephone, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I still have a telephone in my house," and you're like, "Fuck, you have a telephone for?" Like it's the weirdest. Like, why would you do that? And like the idea though that like something
because of cheaper internet access
on my DSL or dial-up. But yeah, it's interesting to think though of like how quick that paradigm shift from like social media not even being a thought to being this ingrained portion of our life. It really is. Like, I mean, figure Facebook's what, like late 90s, early 2000 was the inception. It's been less than 20 years, and this thing and social media as a whole is this like crazy integral part, it feels like, of everyone's life.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally become, I mean, Facebook is business now, right? Like everything's ads. It's
Yeah.
turned into literally a marketing tool. That's it. You know, and I think that's why a lot of people, when you say you don't have a personal account anymore, I feel like nobody's using Facebook for what they used to use it for.
Generationally, I think it's shifted, and there's still a lot of people who do use it for like staying in touch, but like,
I mean, for the most part, I see them posting stuff, like ads and articles and fucking MLM like videos on, you know, get your hair care products from me. It's great. It's changed my life. And like, I don't know how many people I know that I used to be friends with that all of a sudden are doing fucking MLM things. It's like, it's literally turned into a business platform.
So I love to like geek out on hypothesizing like the direction that these kind of things are going to go in, right? And I don't part of my job means that I end up having to look at things like this. But with the latest iOS update and the app tracking notifications, so on iOS now, you'll get these notifications say that this app is tracking your movements outside of the app, and do you want to allow it? And since the latest iOS came out, only 12% globally have actually accepted app tracking. The other 88% of people have said no and opted out. And Facebook originally were saying, "Oh, this won't be a big thing for us," blah 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 blah. And now the message that you will get from the Facebook app, that on the prompt that comes up, basically says, if you want us to keep Facebook free, you need to allow this, because it is seriously going to shift the dynamics. If you think a simple shift like that around privacy, and only 12% of people have opted in, Facebook's entire business model is built around that data and the consuming of that data and targeted advertisements around that data. They're already feeling the pinch of it. I'm fascinated by what the knock-on impacts that is going to have for those businesses. So Facebook, Google, Amazon. I think Google and Amazon have got enough other avenues of revenue streams that they'll be able to kind of get around it and not worry too much about it. But Facebook, Instagram, it's going to be hugely impacting their revenue stream already. And can you imagine if we moved into a world where you had to pay for social media, how that would shift the dynamic?
Yeah.
That would be...
I mean, I think it's good that, like, it's funny because, like, I think there's this whole resurgence now of bringing privacy back, and I think that's good. I think people should be aware of what they're accepting and what privacy they're giving away. But also, yeah, I think people still aren't fully cognizant of the impact that's going to have on all the things that they consider conveniences in life now. And like, I'm 100% on board with the fact that, like, yeah, I know I've sold my privacy for things like, you know, an Echo Dot and all that bullshit. And like, I'm fine with that, but I'm also like very aware of that. And for me, it's been a fair trade-off. There's certain things where I'm like, you know, I don't want to deal with that. And in other situations, I'm like, yeah, but yeah, people don't think about that. People, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to remember when this came out now, but the Social Dilemma, that like movie where or that documentary where it was basically like, you're the commodity for social media, and people are like, oh, wow. And I'm like, I've always known this. Like, nothing is free. Nothing is free. Not even water is free. The most abundant resource in the world is not free. So like, if you think of it that way, people are finally catching up with it. But at the same time, it's like, all right, well, now we've scared ourselves that we've given out all this information. We need to reclaim all that information and all that privacy. I almost think that's going to be detrimental to the tech industry as a whole. Like, we're really going to start seeing loss of advertising revenue, which in turn is going to increase either in situations of Facebook where you have to pay. I don't know anyone who would actually pay for Facebook, but think about like Amazon. Like, there could be cost increases for things like Amazon Prime and shipping and cost of goods because Amazon can't supplement all of that with advertising data. Like, all of these simple things where we've gotten convenience out of it in exchange for, it's almost like a crude comparison is like selling your soul to the devil for like a deal you want. Like, this is what we've done. We've sold our privacy for convenience in life. And it's going to be widespread impact if we continue down the route of just wholesale cutting it off.
Bear with me on this. So let's say Facebook, Amazon, Google are all massively impacted by it.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? And even let's say Netflix, because Netflix like uses the targeted acquisition around app tracking. Could you imagine if those 4 companies turned around and said, Apple, if you want to be whiter than white and you want to try and control the game, we're no longer going to have our apps on the iOS App Store.
Yeah.
Could you imagine your iPhone without those apps?
You know what?
And how would that shift the game?
I'll say this. Maybe I'm not just gonna say a sentence here. I was gonna try and count the numbers. I'm gonna skip it, but this will be enough to scare everyone. Imagine your default search engine is Bing.
Does Bing even exist anymore?
Dude, it's still a thing. Yeah, it's Microsoft owns it. Of course, it's still a thing. I just don't know anyone who uses it.
Even exists. I'll be honest.
Oh my god, Steve. See, and that's where you just are such an Apple fanboy on it. Like, Microsoft will continue to exist for a very long time because they have their hands in everything. Of course.
I used Apple for fucking 20 years. PC for 20 years.
I'm still at the end of the day, I just wish Linux did better about people porting things over, and then I'd be on Linux. Fuck PC, fuck Apple. I'd be fine with my own little open source stuff. But yeah, dude, it's crazy to think of what and that is the thing though. That is the power of both sides of this. I mean, and again, though, like, what's Apple going to do where Apple's just like, listen, we have regulation coming out. We have to comply with this shit. Like, if Apple tries to step back from this, there's no guarantee the government's not going to come out and say, oh, no, you have to bring that back. You have to do that. And then it puts Apple in a situation where it's like, all right, well, what are we going to do? It's a lose-lose. Like, it also goes to show, though, how much power we've actually given these companies over our life. Mm-hmm. Like, the fact that something as simple as quote unquote simple as privacy could in theory set back technological advancements decades because we've now crippled our ability to find information, or we've now crippled our ability to have low cost consumer goods because of supplemental income. Like, it's scary. It's definitely scary to think about. Like, we've given these companies a lot more power than anyone really realizes. And I know in the US, we always have like Senate hearings on tech and all these things that come up around privacy and data collection and all this. And like, I don't know how many people actually pay attention to it, but they actually should be, because these are very important underlying concepts that are coming up about how the world runs now,
I watched a couple of those Senate hearings, and the senators, they were going hard at Tim Cook, Zuckerberg, Bezos. They were giving them a really hard time, weren't they?
Yeah, oh my God, yeah. And honestly, though, as much as they were giving him a hard time, and I think a lot of it too was like there was a lot of sidestepping and not really conclusive answers coming out of the tech leads. It's like people still they forget. And I think that's part of it too, is we've almost created a society where our attention to detail and our memory is very short. And all of a sudden, if you have a short memory, you forget that last week people were questioning whether or not Facebook was a safe platform for kids and things like this. And all these things, or the fact that, like, dude, it keeps coming up. Prime example, TikTok. TikTok has gone through so many iterations at this point, and people have such a short memory span with it, but there is genuine concern about safety for children on TikTok and pedophiles and predators getting on TikTok. And every single week it comes up somewhere in the news, but it's so overshadowed by this fucking massive social media engine that is TikTok that people don't even really give it much thought. And honestly, looking at how long we've been giving away privacy data, if that's any indicator, it could be 10 years before people start questioning how safe things like TikTok are. And I've been talking to a lot of people about this recently, actually, the idea that it's kind of funny, having grown up in the generation when the internet became big, when you first got on the internet, it was like, don't tell people your real name. Don't tell people how old you are. Don't tell people where you live. Like all of these things now. And nowadays it's just like, oh, let me get on here and I'm gonna make friends and be like, yo, this is my home address. I've known you for 15 minutes. Come hang out. And you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, it's scary to think, man. It's scary to think how much it's actually changed. I mean, it would actually be interesting to see if they could figure out a way to visualize or to actually like put into data format the way we think pre-internet versus post. Yeah. You know, it'd be interesting to see how like something like, and I'm not a medical professional anyway. I must say a CAT scan because that's the one thing that comes to mind. But like, it would be interesting to see like a CAT scan of like how your brain works pre-internet, post-internet, or whatever the actual like real test would be, just to think about that. Like, I'm sure there are changes that have happened in our brain chemistry and the way our brain functions, probably good and bad, based on the internet and all of this evolution.
Yeah, Leslie doesn't put her name anywhere. She
Dude,
puts
good.
Leslie. That's it. She doesn't put her name. Like she doesn't give her phone number out. Nothing. She doesn't even. She follows 100 people, and they're all brands and like me and her best friend. Other than that, she doesn't follow any of her friends. Nothing. She doesn't want anybody to know anything. She doesn't want anybody. She doesn't want to know anything.
I mean, the fact is, like, think about it this way too. Like, it's funny to think that like pre-internet, there was this whole, and this is going to go down like a weird ass tangent here, but there was this whole industry of like private investigators. And like, imagine, like, think about like Dick Tracy movies and shit back in the day where it's like people like following you around in a car because they don't know who you are and they need to figure out who you're hanging out with. These days, all you need to do is know someone's screen name on any social media platform, and I can tell you every single person who you may have a connection with. And even though you may not be giving out information, those people around you who you're friends with and you're tagged in photos with may be giving out your high school name, your town name, all of these things that end up filtering down who you are. And that's scary as shit. And you know, there were a couple times on TikTok where I've seen in comments where people will actually comment and be like, hey, just a heads up, you may want to take down this video because based on this video and other videos you posted, people could figure out your street address and where you live. And it's like, fuck, that's kind of scary. Like, you don't even think about the fact that like, oh, I'm taking a photo outside and these are the landmarks around me. We have Google Maps of the world, basically. And you can get in pretty damn close to major landmarks and figure out, oh, this person took this picture there, even though you didn't tag the location. That whole mentality and like the way that people don't realize it and don't realize how much they give away, even though they do realize to some extent how much they in fact do give away. It's crazy, man. It's a different world out there now. I'm almost feeling like I sound like a conspiracy theorist here, like a doomsday prepper. But like, this is like true. And like, this is stuff that people just don't think about. And like, again, I'm very cognizant of this and I willingly give my information away for the convenience it gives me. But I know for a fact that there are millions of people who give away that same information without fully understanding what they're doing. And I'm sure I don't even fully understand, but I do make an effort to understand as much as I want to read the terms of service, you know?
Dude, but here's the thing. Social media is the biggest tool nowadays for law enforcement. Do you know how many like crimes they solve based on like social media?
Well, that's also people being stupid. If you commit 100%. A crime, leave your phone at home because they can track it and don't fucking post about it. Like,
right. But what I'm saying though is like, they can tell you, like even alibis, you know, and it's funny because relationships, perfect example. How many relationships end now because you're at a party and in the background, you're sucking face with some chick and your girlfriend sees that picture and she asks you, oh, where were you this weekend? And you're like, oh, I was with the boys. And
Steve, that's even outdated, dude. There are now TikTok accounts where you can go ask people on TikTok to DM your significant other and act like you're like into them. And
that's happened.
Dude, like, that's been happening. But that's what I'm saying though. Like the internet is a dangerous, dangerous tool and people just willingly jump into this shit like it's the deep end of the pool being like, yeah. And it's crazy, man.
I mean, that stuff's been happening forever.
but like, yeah, and again, like, I think the best thing people can do in those situations, again, I don't even know how we got on this topic. I feel like I sound like a conspiracy nut and I'm fine with that. But like being cognizant of it, I'm not saying people need to be out there reading. You should always read the terms of service before you agree with it. Nobody does it. But like at the same time, you should definitely try and realize, like, you could easily Google, like, what is Facebook? Like all these companies have to tell you what they do with your data now. Like, thankfully, because of regulations that have been in place, read the pages that they put up about your privacy, because it's much more layman's terms, and it save your ass in the long run when you're like, oh man, Facebook knows where. Actually, great example. My phone popped up something the other day, and it was actually like my phone, like Samsung, popped up with a little thing being like, do you want to rate your recent purchase at blah, blah, blah? And I didn't use Samsung Pay. I didn't do anything on my phone other than the receipt came through my Gmail app, which is on my phone. And Samsung farmed that out of my Gmail to ask me to review a purchase from something on fucking eBay. And I was like, really? Like, that's a bit invasive, even for me. I was like, damn, like, no, I'm not thrilled about that. But
Dude,
like,
they get you, man. Dude, seriously? Like, I bought something. What was it? Literally, it was like last week. I bought something, and we were talking about it, and then I got an ad for it. And this obviously happens all the time. We always talk about it. And I was like, what are you giving me an ad for? I literally just bought it on Amazon. Like, I just bought the damn thing, and you're giving me an ad for it? It's like nothing. My girlfriend says, I don't want an Alexa because it hears everything. I'm like, lovey.
switch your phone, yeah.
Your phone, you have an iPhone. Like, it hears everything. I'll go in there and talk to her about like some YouTuber she watches. I'll go on my Instagram, and in my Instagram feed, that fucking YouTuber comes up on my Instagram feed. And I'm like, I don't even want to look at her, talk about her, see videos of her talking about horses or whatever the hell she talks about. But that's just, they're listening, man. It's how it happens. It's all, it is what it is. Yeah, if you want to get, I don't know, if you want to get Flat Pack, talk about it. It'll show up on your Instagram feed tomorrow, and you can buy it.
Dude, it's crazy for sure.
What a wild tangent that was.
I feel like we digressed there massively, didn't we?
You know what though? That's the fun of this show, is we can you never know what, honestly, in 3 weeks we could go deep on macaroni and cheese. You never know. So there's always
Stouffer's macaroni and cheese is the bomb.
I feel like we've had this conversation a lot recently.
Best mac and cheese ever. Anyway.
Well, while we still have some people listening in, does anyone have any last minute questions for Jason here before we kind of wind things down for the evening after our nice little privacy chat there? Again, I encourage anyone out there listening to make sure you understand the privacy tools available to you for all of your platforms. But
we're doxing you, and we are copying all your private information.
No, we're not. We're not doing any of that.
I'm kidding.
Deckin Around does not give two fucks about your private information. Please keep it. If you want to give us your email, don't do that either for now.
When you go back on Instagram, you're then going to see some like Deckin Around t-shirt merch coming up as a sponsored ad.
Hey, listen, Deckin Around has we do have t-shirts, but we don't pay for sponsored ads. We're purely word of mouth these days, but dude, you know, it's always interesting to see how the world has evolved. And again, like, I love the internet. I love all the convenience that technology brings to us. But I think as a whole, we don't do a good enough job teaching people to be aware of that anymore. Like, even I catch myself sometimes. I still have like concerns when I'm like, oh man, someone's like, hey, I want to send you a deck of cards. And I'm like, oh, here's my address. And I'm like, should I have really done that? And I'm like, all right, like, you know what? I'm a 36-year-old dude. If someone wants to come to my house and get fucked up trying to like mess with me, that's fine. But like, at the end of the day, I'm like, how many kids are out here though, just giving out their address, not even thinking about it, you know? Or like all these giveaways where someone's like, hey, you're a giveaway winner. You're a 14-year-old individual from the Midwest US. Like, what's your home address so I can mail your shit out? And it's like, that's suspect. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it, man.
Mark,
we love you.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's.
I got yelled at when I didn't do a sound before, so I had to do it.
Have you guys heard of Tim Westwood?
No.
Okay, so Tim Westwood was like a radio presenter stroke DJ in the UK.
Right.
Like Google him after this. But he was like really into like hip hop rap music, which at the time wasn't a big thing in the UK, and he was like this everything about him, you wouldn't think he was like really big on this scene. But whenever he used to do like mixtapes and stuff, he used to always have like air horns and things like that over the front. He'd be like, Westwood.
That's funny.
Man.
Oh, goodness.
Now, this is the one thing I do love about the show here is because it always does just go in random ass tangents. And I think it's interesting to always like, it's always a different tangent. I feel like we never hit the same tangent just because
People are different,
people,
man.
Different people, always have different things that come into their mind in weird ways, and it's always interesting to talk about. But dude, Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on tonight, man. For anyone who isn't familiar with Jason still, go check out his Instagram, Deception is Reality. Check out his website, deceptionisreality.co.uk. Both links are in the description below. Absolutely amazing creator. Check out Flat Pack. I think they still have it at Murphy's. So if they do, check it out. Check out, like you said earlier, less than 200 pounds will get you everything on your site. I think that's a phenomenal thing, which is so cool since you really are an amazing creator. And it's cool to know that this is really more of a hobby for you than anything. I think a lot of people really do try and make magic a career, and I think it's a respectable career, but it's really cool to see people who are passionate about their day job and magic, and really try and make a contribution to the hobby without necessarily wanting to do it to get rich and be the next, David Blaine or whoever. Love David Blaine, nothing against him, but with that in mind, it's always good to see people come in with the intention of bettering the community. So we appreciate that, man.
Agreed.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure being here. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. Stick around for the after show after this. And for everyone who's still watching, if you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And you will definitely want to make sure you tune in for next week's guest. Next week, Sunday, I don't even know what the day is, June 6th, maybe something like that. Yeah, June 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be sitting down with the one, the only Shin Lim to talk. Who knows? Maybe macaroni and cheese. So
I have a feeling we'll definitely be talking macaroni and cheese with
there's definitely gonna be food conversation, because I know he enjoys good food. So
he's a cook, man. He likes cooking. So
thank you everyone for coming out today. Appreciate all of the support. Make sure to enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you all next week.
Tomorrow is Kickstarter Monday.
It is, man.